It is your PrisonPlanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here in this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday, 25th day of June, 2013. I am your host, Alex Jones. And I told you this a long time ago because it's the facts. Congress insisted they be kept in the dark on NSA spying. That's now what the lawmakers have come out and are saying to the press. They passed the echelon legislation in the 80s. They passed the Telecommunications Act of 96 and the subsequent acts that all stated $5 billion, $9 billion, $18 billion, $50+ billion, $100+ billion. That's how it's building up to build giant spy grids everywhere and hire hundreds of thousands of analysts per region to listen to your phones, to track everything you're doing in live time. And they're not looking for terrorists, folks, okay? They've given them heat-seeking missiles in Syria. They are controlling the economy and spying on good government people. This has come out from whistleblowers. They're spying on the light side of government because there's a legitimate side of government that does legitimate actions and legitimate, quote, services. The problem is that it's shrinking down to nothing. And it's come out that they use it to spy. I mean, what did NSA insider Wayne Madsen tell you on this show 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, a year ago, 6 months ago? Over and over again. The NSA is there to spy on Congress, to spy on other governments, to spy on corporations, and to spy on the American people, and to spy on FBI, CIA, NSA. That's their main focus, the most important thing, the apple of their eye, the plum, is their own people because the government is engaged in criminality. And they're all acting like this isn't going on. It's like General Alexander, the head of the NSA, the head of the Cyber Command, looking at the deputy director of the FBI and saying, tell your boss I'm going to buy him another beer. Because it's all a big joke, ladies and gentlemen. They're all committing crimes. And so, of course, Congress says, I know nothing. I've seen nothing. I hear nothing. Nothing. And what do they do in their testimony? All of them. Justice Department heads, all of them. I know nothing on Benghazi. I know nothing on IRS Gate. I know nothing on Fast and Furious. They actually know everything. If someone in the Justice Department or someone in the NSA that's even mid-level wants to go into my entire surfing history, they can do it right now. And they can also go in there and place false things. That's even under law, under a subsection of the Patriot Act on sneak and peek. And then when you find out about it, if you catch them in your house or catch them on your computer remotely, it's a felony if you tell anyone they were doing it. Well, I mean, what, are they going to have laws next that they can put children in soup bowls? You know, it's the law. Or make black people slaves again. It's the law. I mean, well, I say your law is a fraud. It's unconstitutional. It's a infamia. So that's just one of the articles up on Infowars.com of, no exaggeration, there's probably 200 articles here. Richard Clark says Hastings accident consistent with a cyber car attack or car cyber attack. We're going to get into just huge amounts of news, some breaking stuff on Benghazi, 76% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. It's all coming up. George Noory and Sheriff Richard Mack. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday, 25th day of June 2013, worldwide transmission. We're going to be here for the next 3 hours. Congressman Issa has issued Benghazi subpoenas to the State Department, and more news is coming out on that front. It was in Reuters a few days ago, but has gotten really no attention, that thousands of U.S. troops have been deployed to an area in Israel by Gaza in case of some type of collapse in Egypt, and millions of people trying to influx into Israel. That is unprecedented, and then it's just back of the newspaper. We've got Putin confirming that Edward Snowden never entered Russia and is in the customs area in the no man's land, and he's told Snowden to leave. And on top of that, the media is running around again trying to frame this as if Putin or the communist Chinese are involved. And I'm not in some love affair with those guys. It's just that they're not the globalists that run my country and that are running it into the ground. We've not been conquered by Russians or Chinese communists. We've been conquered by mega banks that will work with anybody to consolidate power in America and deindustrialize us. That's part of their score to settle with this republic. You can say the globalists are allied with some of the communist Chinese leadership to get cheap slave goods to leverage out markets, but that's as far as it goes. So the attempt to brand Snowden as some foreign spy, and we're seeing more and more of that, it just doesn't fly. And then they can put out the idea that any whistleblowers are basically involved in espionage. And that's why Hong Kong was smart to say you need to leave. That's basically what happened. And now Russia is smart, saying you stay in the customs area. We're not letting you in Russia, and we need to say you need to go. You need to go. And now they've got Kerry and people backtracking, the Secretary of State going, okay, Russia isn't involved in this. But when you see Meet the Press saying arrest members of the press that Snowden talked to, that is about rolling out a war openly on the press and arresting people that expose government corruption. This is Soviet Union, Maoist China, Fidel Castro's Cuba. This is beyond stuff that Hugo Chavez would do. And this is starting to border on Hitlerian. This is how it started in 1935-36. It took Hitler a couple years to start going after the press. First, he went after army personnel and his own Nazis in the SA who weren't, going along with the full program. And after he consolidated power in the government, which they're trying to do with the NSA now, and over the media, then they go after everybody else. And again, you've committed no crime, you pay outrageous taxes, you bow to the government, you don't care about freedom, you think you're safe. It's the opposite. You are a lunch to these people. You are a lunchable. You are low-hanging fruit. Those of us that fight the system, those of us that are aggressive, those of us that are highly visible, historically and currently, I can tell you, are among the most safe of people. The only folks they kill, in my research, are people that have a smoking gun and who have extreme credibility. And Michael Hastings, associate editor of Rolling Stone, said, I've got bombshell info on the CIA, the NSA spy scandal, and on women and sex with Petraeus. And what was behind that? Well, it was clearly sex operations. It was clearly sent in to compromise him. So it's an internal fight between the Army and the CIA. We've confirmed that across the board from a raft of insiders, from Steve Pachenik to you name it. A lot of them off record, I'm not going to say. Some of them are guests you hear on air, but some of them are off record. But Wayne Madsen's on record, many others. And that's when you get killed, is when you've got something, oh my gosh, he's very credible, people believe him, he's got the ear of the progressive, but also the conservative press and the liberal press, killing. And I said on Sunday, well, I said last week as well, that I don't believe that Michael Hastings was killed in a remote control accident, even though DARPA's on record saying all the new cars can be remote controlled instantly by the government. They have the code key, backdoor passwords, hardwired into everything wirelessly. All these cars are now wireless on record, especially this Mercedes, and they can take control of it and drive it better than a race car driver can. In fact, you can program the computer to take someone on a route and drive at speeds that the computer can drive at, but that humans wouldn't be able to control the vehicle. I mean, 5 states already have Google cars driving on the road. By next year, it'll be 20 plus. They estimate within 5 years to 10 years, every state in the U.S. will have robot cars, and then they're going to replace humans because the insurance is going to be jacked up. And I told you this a decade ago because I know how they work. Now they've announced it. We're going to charge you a lot more insurance if you're a human driver. You're supposed to get in your cars and have them drive it for you. And that's what this new Mercedes did, and the new Lexus, and a bunch of others do. Soon you'll be able to get low-cost cars that don't have this, where it drives. Oh, you were going over in a lane? I'm taking over. You're going too fast? I'm going to brake. This is horrible, but again, they always sell tyranny, implantable microchips, face scanning, smart homes that spy on you and control everything you do, and tattletale on you. All of this is always sold as a status issue. And I'll never forget in Wash Tech, back when the Washington Post in about 98 to 2002 was putting out a digital but also monthly hard copy magazine called Wash Tech, they had their head technology writer brag that he'd been in with DARPA. You can look this up. And that they were going to promote a movement of body modification and tattooing. And I'm not saying that's bad if you do that. My point is they were going to promote it in the movies and TV to prepare. This is DARPA talking to you like you're an idiot, telling you the secret, to prepare you to accept implantable chips, and that there would be pills you swallowed that reported to your doctor what you were taking through your wireless internet, part of all prescriptions. I told you this 2 years ago, wrote articles about it. We had the companies putting it out, threatened to sue us if we didn't make modifications to our articles. It was in the Wall Street Journal, the Daily Mail, the Associated Press, Reuters, and a bunch of other publications the last 2 days that indeed that's the plan. You won't get a prescription unless it's got RFID in it. Forget to take medicine. These pills will tell your doctor. Wall Street Journal. See, people keep saying, man, this guy sounds crazy, all this stuff. I'm telling you what they said they're going to do. I want to explain something to you. They say they put cancer viruses in your vaccines. They say they put hydrofluorosilicic acid in your water to give you cancer and dumb you down and sterilize you. They say they're spraying aluminum dioxide, barium salts, and also some radioactive isotopes to weather modify worldwide. It's public. It's called geoengineering. But the public goes, I heard, won't even look it up, won't even watch the films online for free that break it down. I mean, we're in Buck Rogersville. We're having our entire society radically re-engineered into an artificial habitat, in their words, to where we will artificially adapt to that and then be unable to live outside of it. We're having nanotech engineered viruses. That's what they are, artificially engineered viruses. All a virus is a replicating data RNA packet that programs DNA. So they've created on record, this is stuff that's declassified, thousands of viruses that will reprogram the brain. Do you understand the end of free will? They call it an anti-stress vaccine is how they're rolling it out. See, they call a Kinect the newest, cutest video game. Oh, that, by the way, uses wireless to scan through all your walls and listen to your voice 3 walls over, and it can give a color image of your naked body standing in a shower through multiple brick walls. And all the new computers and everything are listening and watching you. And suddenly, it's all over Wired Magazine. It's all over the news. And they're going, what's wrong with that? It's totally cool. But simultaneously, I'm insane and I'm bad because I'm telling you it went on before they made the announcement. And I'm still insane and bad even after the announcement's made. You understand? That's how the programming works, because you're scared of that. You should be concerned. But you don't feel like you have power, so you're going to say, yeah, that guy's got a crazy show. I don't have a crazy show. I'm like an animal with my leg in a bear trap, trying to claw out of it. We are collectively in the jaws of something really bad, and we need to poke its eyes out. We need to bite it on the nose. It's got our legs, and it's trying to swallow us up, and I'm saying, let's struggle, let's get out of this. And people are like, it's not that bad. They're doing it for our safety. Oh, they're doing it to keep us safe from terrorists. And then it's all on record the globalists run the terrorist. They did 20 years ago, they do today, and are using it to take our liberties. I mean, they're starting drug testing all over the country in public schools without warrants and checkpoints looking for drugs the government ships in and the big banks launder on record. Do you understand, folks? It's on record that every major vaccine they've looked at has cancer viruses added and other weird nanotech stuff. It's on record they're adding dozens and dozens of poisons. It's actually hundreds. But we can prove dozens on purpose. They're not just adding hydrofluorosilicic acid to the water supply. They're adding radioactive isotopes on record. Look it up. You're not in Kansas, folks. That's what people say. Oh, you've got such courage. You don't care if they demonize you or attack you or even kill you. Yeah, because I'm dead already. You understand that? This plan, if it goes through, folks, it's over. Do you understand that? This is the power of hell being released. Now, there's Forbes. Radiation detected in drinking water in 13 more U.S. cities. Cesium-137 in Vermont milk. God help us. God help us. They add it to the water on record. The hydrofluorosilicic compound is mined out of major deposits of limestone, and when they play out in a uranium mine, they turn it to a fluoride mine. They put uranium in your water. Welcome back. I'm your host, Alex Jones. Your calls and a ton of news are coming up in the next segment. Then George Noory is going to be joining us on the NSA, on IRS Gate, on just the state of the world. Always good to get my friend George Noory of Coast to Coast AM on. Sheriff Richard Mack is here in Austin to be interviewed for Obama Deception 2. And while he's at it, we're going to have him in studio in the third hour today. And that should be quite informative, talking about solutions and how to take the states back. We're going to get into the Supreme Court ruling on the Voting Rights Act. The reason the Voting Rights Act doesn't even matter is because of electronic voting fraud. That's the real fraud that's going on, so I'll give you my take on that a little bit later. But to understand what's happening is, in 1913, private offshore banks were able to get a beachhead and take control of our money supply. And then they bankrupted the country artificially, put us into emergency receivership with the emergency acts they put in 1933, the War Powers Act that Roosevelt put into place. And then in 1947, the National Security Act, that whole shadow banking system was able to be given total government power and immunity above the law, basically diplomatic immunity and secrecy. So that really marks a major milestone in our road to tyranny. And then from there, it just gets worse and worse. And now our military's under NATO command, and Congress is told that, and Congress does nothing and plays like they're stupid because they've been paid off. Just like Congress comes out and says, we don't want to go to briefings, we don't want to know about the NSA, because the predecessors voted this treason into place. And most of them are blackmailed. Most of the Republicans and Democrats on record, and that's why it's always coming out, the scams they're involved in, the fraud, the weird sexual stuff, they are identified by the power structure as being corrupt, and they are immediately promoted to the top. And any FBI agent, any CIA person will tell you that when they start going on field operations, first it'll be, here's some high-class, high-dollar hookers, have sex with them. And if you don't have sex with them, you're never moved past a desk job, or you're never moved past basically low-level duties. And then if you have sex with the hookers, then it moves up to take some stolen goods. Just like they tried to corrupt Serpico in the New York detective's office. And I've had Serpico on. We've said, how many of the other police were corrupt? And he goes, in the detective narcotics units, all of them. And then they shot him in the face over it. And only our naivete allows this to continue. Only letting drugs be illegal. They've had Northern European countries legalize drugs. In most cases, drug use goes down by over half. Always over a third. And they put up billboards showing how pathetic drug addicts are. But see, the globalists have already taken over there, so why should they even bring in drugs and sell them? They've already got full control and 75, 80% tax rates in places like Denmark. So why should they even let people ship drugs in and then have it illegal? So I guess that's one good thing. Once we're fully captured by the globalists, they'll legalize the drugs and we can stop all this craziness. But I'd rather stop it now. How many drug dealers are on record going public? In my film, Kevin Booth's American Drug War film, he interviews drug dealers who say, no, we don't want drugs decriminalized. And then they get Christian conservatives to say they should be illegal so the government can ship them in for big banks that get the money and get to launder it. These are the points I'm getting at here. And then they've got people driving around Austin, Texas with bumper stickers saying, I pay carbon credits to this group. And I go look up the group, and it's either Al Gore's group or the Rothschild group or the Clinton-Obama group. There's only 5 different major carbon exchanges. And then you find out that all these corrupt globalist authoritarian mobsters are being paid money on coal, on oil, on plastic, but then people volunteer to have special credit cards that they swipe that send money like an indulgence. Like, when the Pope said, get your family out of hell or out of purgatory, send me money. It's kind of like that in the old days. And you go pay Al Gore or the Rothschilds or the Rockefellers money so you feel good about using your car. It's just crazy. Loving to be suckers. Nothing to do with the environment. I mean, here's one in the Weekly Standard. White House climate advisor, a war on coal is exactly what's needed. We can cue up the clip of Obama saying, we will bankrupt coal. You can build a coal plant, but we will bankrupt you. And they're doing that to shut down our industry. They're not calling for China to stop building 3 of them a week, as they shut down more than 3 of them a week here, and as your power prices go up. I mean, I know I harp on this. It's just they are gutting America right now because they are an enemy globalist group that hates the fact that we still have guns and still have a memory of freedom. They want to extinguish that forever. Just like Stalin would collectivize all the farms in Ukraine to break everybody over a decade. Your calls are coming up at 800-259-9231. First-time callers, folks, today. 800-259-9231. You've got to realize an enemy force is taken over and is waging war on us if we have any hope to ever turn this around. America is captured. Toll-free number to join us, 800-259-9231. Coming up, it looks like a federal lawsuit, maybe even criminal charges against John the Don Corzine, formerly the head of Goldman Sachs and who stole a bunch of private bank accounts, brokerage accounts via MF Global. We'll see if he actually goes to jail like he should. But the crimes he committed are standard operating procedure for the banks that run this country. And they are the people that run the whole New World Order. And look at how many of them are going to jail. Look at how many of them are getting indicted because their crimes are so public and so obvious. We could bring these people down. Also, on the whole immigration bill, the 1,200-plus pages, now people are having time to go through it. I've read some of the subsections. It just ends the country as we know it. And Chucky Schumer is saying that if it's not passed, there'll be a new civil rights movement. Can I go to Mexico or Guatemala or Brazil or France? We mainly talk about Latin America. Can I go to Central Africa and show up and say, my civil rights, I'm here in your country, pay for everything? I mean, the country is going bankrupt, and these big banks want that, folks. They want to destroy our wages. And they sell it in the media via the Ford Foundation for more than 60 years. On record, that's who funds this. The Ford Foundation has more than $50 billion in their war chest, paying for textbooks in Mexico, mainly, saying, El Norte belongs to Mexico, Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. This is the globalists that run our government to create this division so that it's seen as you're anti-Hispanic, even if you're Hispanic, if you don't want to be under the government of Mexico, a failed state. Because the globalists want to collapse Mexico into the U.S. and collapse the U.S. That's their goal in a receivership takeover. Chucky Schumer, who wants your guns and who says the family is a bad thing and is just a horrible monster, he's saying he wants to bring in a bunch of foreigners who could probably be brought in and turned into liberty lovers. A lot of them are. Instead, they're turned into anti-American, socialist, anti-gun people. And then Americans are told, well, you better go along with this or you're racist. When, ladies and gentlemen, have you seen the demographics in this country? If they've branded this as a Hispanic victory racially, notice it's all racial politics, the government and media is selling. Turn on MSNBC, it's like the Ku Klux Klan channel, but for whites that hate whites and other people that hate white people. And they're pushing it, actually to make sure whites then go into their own little bubble as well in a balkanized system. And that's what Brzezinski talks about. That's what the UN and Club of Rome talk about. That's what Henry Kissinger's in the news today, saying what we hope for is a balkanized, divided Syria. That's what they want, is a global corporate government with all the old countries broken up along religious and sectarian lines. This is the Roman model, the British Empire model of divide and conquer. And imagine how they've branded it. If you see the demographics, you've got Hispanics in the Southwest and Texas and Florida where under the age of 10, and this number's a few years old, you've got 60 to 70% of the children are Hispanic. Okay? And then you've got all the rest of the country. I mean, if this was a racial thing, then the Hispanics have won. America is yours. So are you now going to say, let's bring in everybody for the globalist to then vote to be anti-gun? See, because it's seen as the victory against America is to bring in socialism and to get the guns and to do all this when offshore banks are doing it to destroy the United States. I mean, let's say you're a Hispanic truck driver, because we've had these rallies before, when you'll have thousands of people out waving Mexican flags saying La Reconquista, La Invasora, all this stuff, you know, the invasion, the reconquering. People wearing shirts funded by the Ford Foundation that say Plan of San Diego must be implemented now, which means kill all whites above the age of 16. I mean, this is like just beyond the white supremacist. If they said that, they'd be arrested. We have video and photos of this. I've covered it. It's on our site. Just type in Plan of San Diego, you'll find it. And you've got all of this unfolding with the government and big banks funding it to create balkanization. And then you've got Mexico, a completely failed state. You've got all these other Latin American countries collapsing. And I go to these events, and guess who would be at these demonstrations, these counter demonstrations I did years ago? We ought to dig that video up and re-air it, because it's pretty riveting. I probably did like 10 of these counter demonstrations. And I would find that politically correct white people were pretty much all scared to come out there. Guess who would actually join me to protest the illegal aliens? Was mainly Mexican Americans that just wanted to be called Americans, because they understood. It's like, I'm a truck driver. I was getting $30 an hour roughly 5 years ago. This is like a decade ago. And now I'm getting $15, $16 an hour if I'm lucky. And they say soon, with the Mexican trucks coming in, driving on the wages, I'll get nothing. Oh, you got it. See, just like Ross Perot was called a racist, or had nothing to do with that when he said, listen, Canadians are getting $35 an hour on average. We're getting about $24, $25 an hour. We have clips of this actually in Fall of the Republic. I went back. You can go online on YouTube and find the Larry King, Al Gore, Ross Perot debates. There's 2 of them. They're online. They're like 40 minutes long, you know, with the ads cut out, with Larry King. And he goes, listen, Mexico's got, you know, below $1 an hour, no infrastructure. You just put the factories in, no workers' comp, no insurance, no civilization, because the corrupt regimes down there don't want their people to be upwardly mobile. So he got it. You got to pay people a livable wage like Henry Ford did so they can buy the cars you're making. This is how you build a culture. This is how you build a society. And he said, long term, it'll all move to China after the giant sucking sound goes from Canada to the U.S. He explained, we got all the Canadian jobs because we were paid $7, $8, $9, $10 more an hour. That is, the Canadians were. So because Americans were paid less, we got those jobs. And then Mexico is paid way less, so they got those jobs. And then China's paid way less, so then they get those jobs, to where Mexico's losing most of its jobs now to China and India. And it is the race to the bottom. And I'm desperately here trying to explain this to people. I mean, look, I'm smart. I know what I'm doing. My family is smart. They're professionals. They know what they're doing. I'll tell you, my family's going to be okay regardless of what's done to America overall. I know how to adapt, overcome, you name it, and a lot of us do. But the problem is the globalists are just going to tax us to where we can't compete either by design. But let me tell you, the general public that just wants to go out and work a decent job, you're done. You're going to live in a 200-square-foot apartment inside basically a prison cell. This is smart growth, on record. L.A., New York, San Francisco's already doing it. And you're going to be a prisoner. And this has all been planned out, where they're going to raise the taxes, the bureaucracy, and shut down the jobs to where you're totally under government control. You're going to go work 12 hours a day, maybe 18 hours a day, like in China. You're going to live in a high-rise building that is a jail cell. This is the dystopic model, and the elite are going to live out in the countryside and helicopter into town. That is the whole plan in the 60s by Club of Rome. They're implementing it. And they are going to use the population of Latin America that doubles roughly every 20 years to absolutely overrun this country. And they're going to take the guns. The general public is going to vote, along with the electronic voting machines, to do anything. The giant, unwashed, poor, poisoned masses of poor people across the board, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, you name it, are going to do whatever the government says in this new economy to make sure they get their food ration digits put on their card. That's why the globalists want the end of wealth, the end of prosperity for the general public, to make you totally controllable. You're not going to have power but a few hours a day. Government districts are going to have power all the time. That's already been officially set up nationwide. Don't believe me? Look up Austin, Texas. The government and central area of the city has agreements to never have their power turned off in blackouts and to never have their power rates raised. They are the ruling class. You are going to pay and pay. You're going to pay more for 2 hours of electricity a day than you used to pay for a week of electricity when they're done with you. You understand that. I hope you understand that. And they said they're going to start having more and more blackouts on purpose just to train you to not have power. And you notice those have all been happening. This is the new America. Do you understand that? In a decade, Ceausescu went from all of Romania having electricity to no one having electricity but government buildings, army barracks, and government districts of cities in Romania. They will do that here. Every major city of Romania had electricity. Most of the small towns had it. They just got rid of it. This is a total austerity, dark age plan for you and your family. And you're going to compete with 4 million prison laborers in America working for 25 cents an hour. You're going to compete with 100 million Mexicans in Mexico, 30 million here, who are then given government welfare as a corporate supplement to make sure they can work for an unlivable wage and take your job. This is the breaking of America. I'm going to go to your phone calls and shut up. I haven't even gotten into all the news. And this isn't bad news. Knowing about this gives us a chance to turn this around. But they are now saying, Congressman Ryan says an even more likely now bill will pass the House. Oval Office powwow, Obama, Boehner, Pelosi, McConnell, and Reid all trying to ram it through. Mexican theme park offers fake border crossing attraction. It's the patriotic duty to go to El Norte and bring it down. And then the government's saying, that's right, come on in. Here's all your free stuff. Americans don't get it. Americans don't get in-state tuition. Americans don't get free tuition. Americans are the chumps, the marks. We pay for our own destruction. All planned out with total precision. The total destruction of this country. And I just want everybody to remember, if they succeed in all this, remember, are you going to be better off in 10 years than you were today? Are you better off now than you were 10 years ago? And you ain't seen nothing yet. 76% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Just a decade ago, it was less than 50% living paycheck to paycheck. And before that, We were the greatest saving nation in the world. Now we're the greatest debtor nation because it's all done by design on record. We have a criminal government. Rick in Utah, you're on the air. You want to talk about the giant NSA data center there in your state. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that our data center will be up and operational at the end of August. And they said that that our congressman didn't know anything about this NSA deep searching of millions of people. I actually called Orrin Hatch's office. They said that they voted on it in 2005 and that Orrin Hatch voted for it. So, in fact, they actually did know about exactly what was happening.
No, sir. Of course they know about the biggest spy compound in world history. Dozens of giant buildings the size of football fields. Just much bigger than football fields. Huge buildings. We can show the NSA data center. And when American slaves from the newspaper try to go take photos of it in the middle of the town, they come and arrest them like it's illegal to take photos of a giant complex. I mean, only in America. And, of course, Orrin Hatch says he doesn't know it exists. Just like they say there's no FEMA camps, even though it's all on record. This is how they keep people in the dark. I mean, we're talking about a complex that's the equivalent of more than 10 major shopping malls, basically, is how I would describe it. It's just ultra-massive, and that's nothing. That's just a central center. They have bigger centers at Microsoft and Google and Apple and Amazon that are NSA. I mean, that's the only thing we're building is NSA. Because it's not just NSA, sir. Guess what this really is. I'm sure you listen to the show. Do you know what this really is?
What is it?
It is the new internet with fiber optics 100 times faster than the current fiber optic that have already been laid nationwide into the universities and corporate governments. This is the kill system, bigger than the Manhattan Project, to destroy the old internet and take over the new internet that is a spy grid into all the video games, all the appliances, wrist watches, clock radios. Everything now being built and rolled out is an AI spy grid.
Actually, that's absolutely correct. They said one of the reasons why that they brought it to Utah is because of the BYU University, that they have some of the best people there that understand algorithms, and that's who that they want to employ. I also wanted to say about HR 645, about the FEMA camp. They said that that bill actually was never passed, but right now in subcommittee is HR 390, which is actually the old HR 645 to set up a FEMA camp.
But, sir, if you read that bill, the Emergency Centers Establishment Act, but I'm telling listeners, it's everything they've already built. It just officially establishes it and increases funding.
Right. That's absolutely right. That's another thing that I asked Orrin Hatch's office about, and magically they knew nothing about that.
Well, listen, 5 years ago, Cyber Command stood up. That is, it turned on, even though it wasn't congressionally funded yet. It's already in place. They said they're going to shut down the alternative press. They said they're going to spy on journalists. They said in these Pentagon briefings that were even on C-SPAN that they're taking over. They've had Pentagon briefings on C-SPAN where Thomas Barnett and others admit we work for foreign banks, we work for Wall Street, this is a corporate global government. This is all out in the open. That's what's so frustrating, my brother. Is that they're building in San Antonio, in Dallas, in Austin, giant Department of Defense and other private corporate spy buildings. They're building substations to spy on each neighborhood. They're putting secret police units in everywhere. They're planning a full-on war with everybody. All their training manuals say it. It is an open foreign military buildup with collaborators everywhere lining up against us. And all the public manuals are taking our guns, breaking up our families, putting conservatives in re-education camps. I mean, it's so hellish, folks, and how evil and how openly despicable and wrong this is. And we can't even get the addled public, poisoned from fluoride, to even understand the NSA is spying on them.
I don't know how that we can convince our senators and representatives to do anything about it. I literally call my representatives 2-3 times a week. I mean, they know me by name, and yet they do nothing about it, or they play just absolute stupid on things that I know that are running through.
That's what they do. They always deny everything exists, so a real debate can never form. That's a military tactic. Just say, we're not assaulting, there's nothing happening. Tasers aren't killing anybody. GMO's good for you. Fluoride's good for you. They're killing us. We're back live here. Just briefly, InfoWarsStore.com is where we carry the very best products across the board. The best videos, the best books, powerful pro-liberty T-shirts, the magazine, and a whole line of different powerful water filtration systems like ProPure, stainless steel gravity-fed filters that blow away the competition, side-by-side comparisons at InfoWarsStore.com. If you're not filtering your water, you are insane. It is a win-win-win. Get a great deal with promo code WATER, support the broadcast, and most importantly, be healthy. InfoWarsStore.com. And they got the new Pro 1 filters that cut it all out in one filter at one time, not two different filters. But all the units are there, InfoWarsStore.com. And don't forget the new film, State of Mind, on mind control, the past, present, and future. I'm in it with a bunch of other just amazing people. And that's available at InfoWarsStore.com as well. Pre-order it. It comes out in the middle of next month officially. We already have it in stock, but it ships out in the middle of next month. And you will get the film absolutely free, American Dream, exposing the globalist banking cartel. So we also have it in Blu-ray, InfoWarsStore.com, or 888-253-3139, 888-253-3139. Let's go back to the phone calls. I just want to say this briefly. You know, I'm up here saying all this, and it sounds wild, and I go to break, and I go, no, that's all true what I said. Look at how they let the troops use DU, knowing it's a death sentence. Look at how they give them deadly vaccines. Look at how they let them get nerve gassed and don't give them treatment. Look at all the secret testing. The globalists hate us, folks. You've got to understand that. And they want to mop up America. They want to use our energy to build their world government and then get rid of us. And they are targeting everybody. And it's all done compartmentalized. The people carrying all this out, most of them don't even know what they're doing. The water treatment facilities, they go, oh, look, the fluoride came in from China, or came in from Florida, or came in from Wyoming, you know, from the uranium mines in those countries, or in those states. And we just put it in the water, and all it says is sodium fluoride, hydrofluorosilicic acid, and other byproducts. And then labs do tests on it. Some of the stuff, it even says what's in it. Mercury, lead, arsenic, you know, radioactive isotopes, and they put it in the water, and then you go to your city council and they laugh at you. See, I mean, what we're living in a Twilight Zone episode. But I told the story of being up in Hot Springs, Arkansas for a week on a /vacation broadcast. You know, I did the broadcast there, but spent most of the day with my children. A working vacation, as they call it. And I was there, and they had a water convention for the state of Arkansas where the state had passed a law saying you've got to fluoridate because all these towns were pulling it out. And I had so many guys shake my hand and say, we're not putting it in, buddy. You see, the word's out, ladies and gentlemen. The word is out. Let's go to Brad in Indiana. Brad, got about a minute and a half. Welcome, sir.
Hey, Alex, first-time caller, long-time listener. I'm a huge fan.
God bless you.
First of all, I wanted to say I love the music you play. You know, when you're coming back from break, I would for sure love to hear some Rage Against the Machine. But wanted to get to my point here. My dad, he's a retired state trooper. He's been retired now for about 15 years. He's joined the force back in like 1977. He used to be a detective. He was told by his superiors to investigate suspected terrorists. The list he was given, normal people, he would go to their houses. They were all libertarians. They were all churchgoers. All right-wingers, Army veterans. They've been targeting right-wingers for the past few
decades.
I
mean, they got outlawed in the 70s in Texas because it was already illegal. They had the state police spying on. If you aren't a communist, they spy on you. And what's crazy is most of the troopers aren't bad people, and they're like, breaking into houses, you name it. I mean, I don't know about the state you're in. You're in Indiana, but they've always... tell you what, I want to come back to you, Brad. I want to hear more about this than Sean, Paul, Joseph, and others. And we've got George Noory coming up, second hour. Stay with us. All right, folks, we're back live into hour number 2. We're going to cover the waterfront of all the big breaking news, from the open borders promotion to 80% of prepackaged food in America are banned in other countries, to show you how toxic our food is. We're going to get into California about to pass a law that you got to get registered and background checks to buy ammo. But Brad in Indiana was bringing up something I'm already aware of. We've gotten the state police training manuals for really 3 decades that I've seen it. But now it's just started to go public. He was saying his dad's a retired state trooper, that they were told to go investigate libertarians, veterans, right-wingers. And I would just love the state police come knock on my door, act like I've done something wrong. That's what they already do. They've pulled me over and asked, what I'm doing, what I'm planning, where I'm going. I'm just like, come on, I don't bring in drugs like the government. I'm not doing all this stuff. We have a criminal government that is trying to train police just in role-playing. Look at all these school drills they've had where it's a militia attacks the school. Or where a militia is going to bomb the Boston Marathon in a drill. And then, somebody else does it. That came out in the Boston Globe. I told you, folks. I told you they were planning to blame it on us. Every TV show, every movie, the guy that wants liberty and freedom and due process is a terrorist. I mean, come on, how obvious is this? So what else did your dad tell you about this, Brad?
Well, basically, he was told by higher orders to go investigate these people. Well, he figured out that criminals were actually running the state police, which, in his opinion, they were huge liberals. My dad's a great guy. He's conservative. He raised me to be conservative. I mean, he actually retired pretty early. But he was told to investigate these libertarians. My dad's like, these people are not a threat at all. They don't pose a threat to the people.
Well, when the globalists try to arrest everybody and put us in FEMA camps, they know we'll be forced to fight back. That's why we are the threat. We're the threat to this foreign takeover.
And my dad's kind of worried right now. He's starting to kind of wake up a little bit. And I tell him about your show every single day. And I tell him to tune in. I give him all these articles to look at. And he's kind of becoming aware that, hey, we're being taken over here. Our country's ran by communists.
Exactly.
So he's starting to become more aware. And,
listen, here's the deal. Here's the deal. This is so over the top that they might win just because it's so unbelievable. That's how tyranny always works. But if we learn from history now and really face how bad this is, a bunch of anti-human authoritarians using communism and socialism grassroots, they're really a eugenics group, are in control. What are we going to do about it? I mean, because it's only going to get worse. What else is your dad saying? Is he's really starting to wake up?
He's really starting to wake up. I keep telling him to listen to you, but he just won't. But something else I also wanted to touch on. I'm an appliance repair technician, so I work on a lot of brand new washers, dryers. These things are programmed to access your home's Wi-Fi. They're programmed to access your cell phone, so you can do like a quick diagnosis. What you said before about appliances, being able to access, your cell phones, stuff like that is absolutely true.
But it's all on record. The smart meter and the Connect and all of them are designed for the NSA to go in and take control and watch you and listen to you and track you. I mean, the cable boxes, all of it for over 15 years have been watching and listening to everybody. This is all now being announced. They're saying, should it be doing that? See, do I get a Pulitzer Prize for exposing this in 97, 98? No. Now it's just like, big deal. You're being watched. Absolutely. Well, you ought to do a YouTube video about being an appliance repair person and what it's like. And again, that's a secret tax to the corporations that have gotten in bed with the globalist. A lot of times actually funded the globalist, are the globalist, is that you pay in the cost of these products. Some estimates are half your cell phone bill, or half the cost of a cell phone is all the tech built into it, and the spying charges. Well, he's won multiple awards for news reporting for television, Emmys, and, of course, was a longtime talk show host, a top-rated talk show host there in Missouri. And now for the last 11 years or so, he has been the main weeknight host of Coast to Coast AM, one of the highest-rated radio broadcasts in the world. And he's a good friend of mine, and he's had a lot of courage to take That show 11 years ago, there was not a lot of this information out there in the media. I'd say Art Bell covered it maybe, kind of New World Order, constitutional, libertarian issues 10% of the time, which I was very thankful for and was a riveting host. George Noory, I'd say, does it about half the time. And then he gets into the other, fun topics and things that get people thinking as well. And that's why whenever I can catch it, I certainly like to tune in to George Noory, but also all the other great hosts there with coasttocoastam.com, like John B. Wells and so many others, coasttocoastam.com. And he's on with us for the rest of the hour here today. I wanted to get George on to get his take on the NSA spying, the IRS persecution of pro-lifers, libertarians, conservatives, the Snowden situation, the mysterious explosion death last Tuesday, now a week ago today, of Michael Hastings, one of the editors at Rolling Stone. Now Richard Clark says Hastings' accident consistent with a car cyber attack. He said intelligence agencies know how to remotely seize control of a car. Yeah, that particular Mercedes, the computer takes over when it says you're not driving good. They're going to make us have robot-driven cars, folks. That's the plan. Just like I told you 10 years ago, they'll make you take pills that report back wirelessly that you're taking them properly. That's Wall Street Journal. Forget to take your meds. These pills will tell your doctor. And if you're overtaking them, it'll tell your doctor. Everything I've talked about, everything George has talked about for, 16, 17 years on radio, 11 years on Coast to Coast AM, it's now out in the open. So the question is, we've reached that critical crossroads where it's all coming out now that, okay, hydrofluorosilicic acid, major Harvard studies, does lower IQ 20 points on average, does 7-fold increase in bone cancer. Why are they adding more of it than ever? Okay, they are putting cancer viruses in vaccines. Why? Okay, the polio vaccine is sterilizing people en masse. Why? Bill Gates says he wants to reduce the world population. Why is he pushing to make us eat GMO in studies that reduces fertility? I mean, it's just all coming out, everything. And I don't mind becoming passé, but I'm not becoming passé. Instead, I am having, and George I know is being criticized as well, but Mancow's being criticized because he covers some of these issues, and he's now got a big History Channel show coming out. George has got a big popular TV show. Now it's like they're bad because they don't like the NSA spying on them. And they're bad because they don't like FEMA camps being built. And they're bad because they don't, want to fund al-Qaeda in Libya and Syria. So it's either do we reverse the pendulum from tyranny back to liberty, or is it like what happened in so many other countries? We go into the dark night, the dark winter of just, okay, we now are under a tyranny. Now they arrest journalists that talk to whistleblowers. Because, folks, George has talked to a lot of whistleblowers. I've talked to a lot of whistleblowers. I mean, now I sit here and go, wow, I really talked to an NSA person the other day in my office, who I've worked for Air Force Intelligence and the NSA. And he said, I was told, it's Raymond Teague's going to come in next week, I was told I'll be killed. This is in front of 3 of my reporters, if I ever talk about this. Raymond Teague, folks, was on the Apollo mission on the front line as one of the main ground commanders of it. He got a Presidential Freedom Award. Was it from Ronald Reagan? I mean, you could see him on any show about Apollo. You see Raymond Teague there. It was one of the main guys in mission control. Before that, he worked for Air Force Intelligence, and then after that, he worked for government agencies and classified stuff. And he wouldn't tell me anything really classified, but he was shaking when he said this. He said, I was told at each graduation that I'd be killed. All of us were told, you will be killed if you talk about this. I mean, and they've now got Meet the Press saying arrest Greenwald of The Guardian, an American, because he talked to Edward Snowden. This is the chilling effect. No one ever got arrested for reporting criminal spying. It's illegal what goes on. And Raymond also told us, I'm going to go to George Noory. Raymond also told us that, oh, yeah, they saw the intelligence, the spying going on, and that, yeah, of course, the government was bringing in the narcotics. That's now public knowledge. So, George, you get where I'm going with this. What I want to ask you is, do you agree with me, or what's your take on it? Have we reached the crossroads, the jump point, the event horizon here, I think, really in just the next few years, the quickening, where it's all out in the open and humanity has that choice, and we either wake up to how much trouble we're in and have courage to push the envelope and talk about this as you did, really as a trailblazer, and I'm not kissing your hind end, it's true. We need other people to stand up like you did, George, and lead the way, or I think we're doomed. George Noory.
Well, Alex, there's no question. You know, what you've been doing, what we've been doing on Coast to Coast, we've been trailblazers trying to wake up the American people that what's happening is just not right. It's just not normal. And so other people, insiders like the Edward Snowdens and the Michael Hastings, these are people who said, you know what, we think enough is enough too. And so they, working within that arena, decided to take matters in their own hands to do what they do. I don't know what's happening, Alex. I don't know why this seems to be moving along so quickly. But ever since 9/11, it has just been roaring like a train out of control. And we can see it in everything that's happening today, whether it's we want to control your guns, we want to know what you're doing on the Internet, we want to know who you're sending text messages to. It's just totally out of control. And I mean, they're even putting in little chips in pills so the good doctor can decide if you're taking your medication. What business is it, for him?
That wirelessly transmits like you're a prisoner. Well, they use pharmakia to get us addicted, and then they use that to now make us wireless prisoners with microchips in our intestines, reporting back through the wireless internet. I mean, this is the technocratic takeover, George.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it, and it just, as they said, is just rolling along at a pace that is totally uncontrollable. I think something else is going on here, Alex, and that they feel as if they're out of time. They've got to do this quickly. They've been doing this for the last couple of years. You and I have felt them speed this up. Ever since that day where Zbigniew Brzezinski was talking to the CF, Council on Foreign Relations people, saying they're aware, meaning us, people, we're aware of what they plan to do, and we need to speed things up.
Wow, that's chilling, because then he wrote a book that came out last year and said, I actually went and bought the book, he said, it's cheaper now to kill 1 million people than to just convince them with propaganda. The establishment, I agree with you, is panicking. So what do we do, George?
Well, we keep doing what we're doing, because you can see what's happening worldwide. Look at the uprising in Brazil. Look at what's happening in Turkey. Look what's happened in the Middle East. People are beginning to say, enough is enough. This isn't just the haves and the have-nots. This is people who are just fed up with being controlled, and they're fighting back. Now, through this entire thing, I find it so ironic where Edward Snowden, who I don't believe is a traitor, but I do believe that he is a hero for letting us know what was going on. It's bizarre that a communist nation like Russia would hide him and hold him.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the most baffling of this entire thing. I mean, here we have a guy who releases information on the NSA to protect Americans, to protect our rights and our freedom, and he's being protected by a country that oppresses freedom worse than anybody. It's bizarre.
Man, George, I know you've got children, and I believe even some grandchildren, don't you?
Yes, I have 6 grandchildren.
And people that haven't had children yet, I don't think they understand what clicks in your brain chemically, where you really start caring about the future, and obviously your children and grandchildren 100 times more than you care about yourself. I just can't get how the elite with their kids don't want a better world, because there's no way they're going to get away with all this and not have blowback, George.
No, there's no way they're going to get away with it. I mean, they just can't. And I think one of the reasons, Alex, that they're speeding things up in every direction is that they know we've had enough. And, everything that they had planned is falling apart. And I think that bothers them, too. The plans for the FEMA camps, the control. I mean, it's being whittled away. I mean, look at that crazy rule about taking knives on planes. I was not in favor of that. Come on. But the American public got so outraged about it. The flight attendants got so outraged about it. Even some of the TSA people got outraged about it. They dropped it. And I think that's what's starting to happen now. People are starting to voice themselves, saying, this is ludicrous. This is crazy.
That's right. There's 7.5 billion of us, and if we all start just doing little things, it'll move mountains. If we stop complying and start having our voice heard and start talking to the enforcers and saying, is this really the world you want?
It is. It is something that we will see. My prediction in the next 5 years, such a dramatic change where we will be the winners. You won't believe it.
George Noory's our guest, and I hope that he's right. I know this. We're going to govern what happens in the future. George, I've got a bunch of questions for you on the economy, on the IRS intimidation, new breaking Benghazi news. I want to ask you about that, but we're about to go to break. We're going to find out when we come back, though, what you want to talk about. I always love the wild card of what's front and center on George Noory's radar, so we'll speak to him. And also, he's coming to Canada this weekend to speak, and he's going to have a surprise guest. So we'll tell you about that coming up as well. Stay with us. I want to play a clip for George Noory, host of Coast to Coast AM, that's joining us as a guest right now, and then get his take on it. This is David Gregory on Meet the Press to Glenn Greenwald, who's a hero reporter. In the past, he would just be doing his job, but now it's heroic when you've had so many reporters charged and arrested now, along with whistleblowers, for exposing corruption. If you expose a government murder now and whistleblow, you go to jail. And there's a huge chilling effect going on. So Snowden exposes illegal spying. It's already known it's going on. He just points out what everybody already knows. You had the CIA director last year bragging about how your dishwasher's watching you. But he blows the whistle from the inside, so they want to throw him in jail. And they've, of course, have indicted him and are following him around. And here was Gregory, a member of the press, not even really a member of the press, like a wolf, saying you ought to be arrested, for a reporter now talking to the whistleblower. Unbelievable. This has never before happened in modern American history. Here it is. I want George's take on it.
To the extent that you have aided and abetted Snowden, even in his current movements, why shouldn't you, Mr. Greenwald, be charged with a crime?
I think it's pretty extraordinary that anybody who would call themselves a journalist would publicly muse about whether or not other journalists should be charged with felonies. The assumption in your question, David, is completely without evidence, the idea that I've aided and abetted him in any way. The scandal that arose in Washington before our stories began was about the fact that the Obama administration is trying to criminalize investigative journalism by going through the emails and phone records of AP reporters, accusing a Fox News journalist.
George, you have interviewed countless whistleblowers. Like you broke E. Howard Hunt's son, who as a journalist brought forward the tapes and everything of his father admitting that he'd been involved in killing Kennedy in Dallas 50 years ago. That violates so-called national security. I mean, I guess, should you be arrested? I interviewed him. Should I be arrested?
I was one of the last reporters to talk to Jimmy Hoffa, Alex, back in 1975. I got him on one of my TV shows in Detroit, and then I was walking him to his car. And, he was telling me that he had planned to get back into the Union. He wanted his presidency back, even though the agreement with Nixon was that he wouldn't run for office anymore for his parole. And, I kind of looked at him, and I'm saying to myself, this is a guy who was involved with the mob, who financed through the Teamsters Union Pension Fund Vegas, and now he wants to go straight. They're going to get this guy. And sure enough, a month or two later, he was gone. And, the bottom line is that we as reporters have got to become sacrosanct from anything else. I mean, we're not breaking laws when we're investigating, talking, and getting information. I mean, we used to have a privilege a long time ago where, if law enforcement came to us and said, who's the source of your story? We didn't have to tell them that. Now it's almost as if, you must tell us who your sources are or you're going to jail. But it doesn't matter because we've been listening in on your phone calls and your emails anyway. So we've got that information. It's appalling. And I think what happened on Meet the Press was just as ridiculous. David Gregory trying to pretend that, he's Mr. Holier Than Now, attacking another journalist who was merely the conduit for the story. He didn't do it. He didn't release the documents. He reported on it for the American people and for the world. And to accuse him of aiding and abetting is absolutely ridiculous.
That's right. Well, you've won three
Emmys.
3 Emmys for news reporting. So, I mean, you have been the consummate TV investigative journalist on record. And so here you are as a journalist. Did you ever think you'd see America get to the point where there's an open war on the press, on the Tea Party, on libertarian groups, on pro-lifers, where the IRS is telling Christians they can't pray? I mean, that's in the news. This is authoritarianism. We woke up, it's here, and are we going to lay down to it is the question. I agree with Hastings. It's time for the press to line up and go against this corrupt system.
Absolutely. But then what happens? Look, we don't know what happened to Michael Hastings. Was he speeding along? Did he get into an accident? Maybe, but it sure is coincidental, and I don't believe in coincidences, that here's a guy who was telling his friends, you know, you may be contacted by the FBI, who felt that he was being investigated by the FBI, who said, I've got a major story, and some people think it had to do with drones and surveillance, and all of a sudden the guy dies. I mean, come on.
2 hours after, he says, I'm going off the radar. Absolutely. Witnesses said,
he went off the radar, didn't he?
Yeah, he sure, his engine went off the radar too, 60 yards down the street. George Noory's our guest. Long segment coming up. We'll get into all of the key news and Hastings straight ahead. We'll be right back. We're here Monday through Friday, folks, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central. We have InfoWars Nightly News every evening, 7 o'clock Central. We're finishing up the new studio. We're getting our reporters in place and up to speed. Great crew. I'm preparing to put the show out on cable systems and satellite. All of this is because of your subscribing to PrisonPlanet.tv. If you haven't subscribed, it is $5.95 a month. One membership can be logged on to simultaneously by 11 people, you and 10 other people. So create a username and passcode, takes about a minute, that is unique to PrisonPlanet.tv or InfoWarsNews.com. That'll take you there as well. And then share it with, I think you could do it with 20 or 30 friends and family, because most of them won't tune in every night when the show comes on at 7, or go to the archive simultaneously. And if you try to log in and you can't, that means 11 people actually used it, thank God. Go buy another membership for yourself. I mean, you don't just buy a gift membership and then one person can use it. You get a PrisonPlanet.tv membership, and 11 people can simultaneously use it and see the nightly news, the archives of all the shows in high def, all of my films, my book, Paul Watson's book, so many films that we've made, films we've been authorized to post. We're going to premiere State of Mind that I'm in that explodes the mind control agenda, and I don't just mean MK Ultra type stuff, but the ambient globalist programming. All of that is going to premiere. That film with the filmmakers who are going to be in town in a 4-hour special transmission coming up Wednesday, the 17th of July, in just a few weeks. I mean, that's the type of stuff that goes on at PrisonPlanet.tv. And it's awesome because we've had 300,000+ people tune into PrisonPlanet.tv in one day and watch the show when it's election coverage, or 100,000 tune in when it's Bilderberg coverage, because people are sharing those passcodes. That's Operation Awaking the Sleeping Giant. So if you currently have a membership, share it. And if you don't have a membership or were a member in the past, we've just upgraded it, made it better and better. Please become a member. And I want to thank all of the PrisonPlanet.tv members for being part of PrisonPlanet.tv. Because between that and InfoWarsHealth.com and the incredible products and the films, the T-shirts, the books, the advertising, that's how we have been able to build the largest multi-platform alternative media system in the world. And shows like Coast to Coast with George Noory have helped us. People like Matt Drudge of DrudgeReport.com have helped us. We've all got to hang together. That's why when they went after Rush Limbaugh last year, and we're trying to get him kicked off the air, going after his sponsors, twisting what he said and did. Even though I don't agree with everything Rush says, even though Rush has criticized me before, it didn't matter. If they can take him down, folks, they can take down talk radio. Because it's long form. It's not talking points. Radio's not getting talking points, ladies and gentlemen. It's really what people are into. It's what you call in with. The globalists can't control it. Look, top shows on TV have 3 million viewers. George Noory has 16 million a week. We have altogether, one way or another, 15 million people that tune in one way or another. On radio, it's about 6-7 million a week on actual terrestrial radio. 15 million now a week, one way or another. That's very conservative, by the way. Count YouTube, everything. That's what scares the system. And think about it. We are the biggest media. It's just we're not all fancy pants, and we don't have all the money of, $500 million a year or something to run MSNBC. We're running this whole operation on $7 million a year. And the media's like, ooh, look at all the money Alex makes. I'm spending 100+% right now to finish all this and try to launch. I'm spending our reserves right now. $7 million a year, folks. And I'm actually glad I'm spending all the money that's coming in. Okay? I mean, because I'm doing this with what you support us with. This is expensive. My bandwidth is now $650,000 a year. We just checked the last 12 months' numbers. IT is on top of that. It is expensive to be doing this. It's expensive to have a free video feed for the daytime viewers at Infowars.com/show. But we've gotten sponsors to pay for most of it. So support our sponsors. Now, I want to get into a bunch of issues and take calls all over the map with George Noory, Paul, Joshua, Joseph, David, Karen. Paul's been holding the longest, along with Joseph. We're going to get to you. George Noory's our guest here, but George has expanded. He's doing a very popular TV show at GeorgeNooryLive.com. He's doing speaking engagements all over the place, and it's important to support what George is doing as well, and I'm going to be on with him, and it's being sponsored by AM 640 up in Canada, and I want George to tell everybody about this very exciting event that is close to selling out in this giant theater and the people that are going to be there. You've got George and two other physical guests. They probably won't let me into Canada. They barely did last time. That's why I'm not going to be there. But I'll be there via Skype as well to kick it off. George, tell us about this historic event that's coming up in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Oh, it's going to be exciting, Alex. This coming Saturday, I'll be in Toronto at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre, doing a major event with a little entertainment, which I'll explain in a second. But David Hatcher Childress will be with us talking about ancient mysteries, Richard Dolan talking about the UFO disclosure, and of course you'll be joining us live, as you just said, via Skype on a huge screen before a packed house. They've still got some tickets available, and if anybody's interested in the greater Toronto, New York area, just go to GeorgeNooryLive.com, Noory, GeorgeNooryLive.com, and come on by and see us. And my mother is coming up from Detroit, according to my sister.
Wow.
She's never seen me in a live event, and she's all excited. And part of the caveat is I'm going to be singing some songs there.
Oh, my
I do
gosh.
that part-time for fun. We all have our own little hobbies. And so I'm going to turn it into an entertainment venue as well. So it's about a 3-hour event. And I'm really looking forward to it. Toronto's a great city, and I've got to tell you, Alex, our Canadian brothers and sisters just admire what we as Americans do. And, they're in the trenches with us. They were in World War II, and they still are now.
Well, I know your events are amazing. I've been to a few of them to overflow crowds here in Austin, and I want to thank you for inviting me up there, and thank you for letting me just be part of it via Skype. Tell me about some of the other guests that are going to be there.
Well, David Hatcher Childress, of course, the expert in ancient mysteries, so he's going to be on with me, just talking about some of the great mysteries and the bizarre things that have happened on this planet for years. Richard Dolan is an expert on government secrecy, and of course he specializes in the UFO search. And then we've got Alex Jones, who's going to talk with us about NSA and about world rights and everything else. And that's going to be fun. You're going to have an audience of maybe 900 to 1,000 people watching you on this big screen, and I'll be standing up next to it talking to you via Skype.
Absolutely, and I'm going to be there via Skype. Next time you're on, George, I want you to get on Skype as well.
And also, you may be on Coast to Coast tonight for a couple hours, the first couple hours, right?
Absolutely. You just invited me during the break. Yes, sir. I'd love to come on and talk about all these issues.
Okay, we'll do that.
Fantastic. No rest for the... I don't feel too wicked, though. It's no rest for liberty lovers.
No rest at all. We don't stop. Last Friday, right before Saturday, I had put in 20 straight days in a row in work. And you know what? I'm not tired. I'm energetic. I keep going. When it's all said and done, I would have put in 40 days out of 42. But, we have to do that now, Alex. We don't stop, do we?
Well, I'm only exhausted when I'm not working. And I think my dad says, well, that's what happens when you're burnt out, son. You got to keep working, because if you stop, I guess they almost call that post-traumatic, where you've done, you work so hard. I know a lot of doctors have that, where then when they finally try to relax, it's like you're exhausted. I think that's what's going on, George.
Yeah, I think so, too. When you stop, that's when you pass out. So you got to just keep going like the ever-ready bunny and the Energizer, and just keep going.
You know, there's so many stories. Promise me you'll come on in a month or so for an hour to talk about George Noory, because you never really talk about yourself, and then you're like, oh, yeah, I knew Jimmy Hoffa. You've got so many interesting stories I hear when you tell them occasionally, but not often enough, about your decades as being a top TV investigative journalist. Just really interesting stuff. What's the craziest thing that you ever saw or witnessed as a TV news journalist?
Oh, I've done some things that I can't mention on the air, but there have been a lot of strange things that have happened over the years, Alex. I mean, whether they were calls into Coast to Coast. I remember a lady who called me one day and said, George, you're not going to believe this. My husband, who never comes home late, was abducted by aliens. And I said, oh, my God, is he okay? She said, yeah, he came home nervous and sweaty and shaking. And I said, so he told you got abducted? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, what else happened? She said, these aliens, do you know what they did to him? And I'm going, oh, my God, probes, what? And she said, they took his wedding ring off. And so the poor guy spent the night out, right, probably playing around, forgot to put his ring on.
Said aliens did it.
And aliens did it. She fell for it. So, I mean, we get all kinds on Coast to Coast. And in my TV arena, you know, I was generally a pretty hard news guy. You know, I covered things, 6 people murdered in Detroit. You know, I was there at the drug house while they were carting these people out. I mentioned Jimmy Hoffa. So, you know, I interviewed George McGovern during the presidential race. I mean, I go way, way back.
Absolutely, George. You have seen a lot. We're going to go to some phone calls here in a little while. They're all over the map. We have Karen, who says she's a retired NSA worker. Paul wants to talk about current events, chemicals and rivers and the environment. Joshua, Joseph wants to talk about government harassment. David wants to talk about Man of Steel movie. Hey, have you seen the Man of Steel movie, George?
No, I have not. I have not. Normally what I do, Alex, is I wait till these things come out on the DVD, and then I watch them in the comforts of the house.
I hear you. I'm not a big fan of the kind of comic book genre, but I thought it really had a wholesome anti-New World Order, anti-authoritarianism, anti-eugenics message. And I'm seeing more and more positive stuff out of Hollywood. People actually say, what, are you getting paid to promote these movies? No. When I see something positive, I want to give it attention instead of just only covering the negative. Like the Supreme Court, I think, ruled right that the companies can't patent your genes and then not let anybody else do research on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some things the court does do some things that are right, and sometimes they do some things that aren't.
I haven't had time to analyze the ruling yet, but what do you think of the Supreme Court striking down key provisions of the Voting Rights Act today?
Well, that's an interesting situation. You know, the Voting Rights Act, which was passed during the Civil Rights era, tried to protect states and things like that. I have not jumped into it as well, so I can't say if it's a good or bad thing, but it's interesting that some 40 years later, they jump on board to change it. That I wonder why.
Plus, it's kind of schizophrenic. Yeah, they said a week ago, Arizona can't demand IDs to vote, and then now they say, that they're not going to have the feds harassing the states. It's just bizarre. I'd like to see the right to not have an electronic voting machine proven to be a fraud. I'd like to see a right to go back to paper ballots.
Well, I would too. You know, Bev Harris, black box voting, she has been a staunch proponent against these electronic voting machines. And, I mean, there's no question if the NSA has the ability to tap into everything we do electronically, who's to say that they one day can't, rig an election? And even though a lot of us suspect some hanky-panky has gone on, that they just simply change everything, and everything's going through these various companies. I think there's a company in Spain that owns, a pretty sizable electronic voting company here in the United States. It was a Tampa-based company that they bought.
Oh, yeah. Back when Senator Hagel first got in, I didn't believe it when it said that he owned 91% of the company, that almost all votes were counted on, and then it was confirmed. And it's like, oh, what's wrong with having me owning the company you vote on that's designed where people can go in and change the vote? I mean, it is just insane to see this going on. I want to bring up Hastings again and then go to these phone calls, George, and bring up any other important breaking news that you think is important. But I wanted to play the clip of him on the Young Turks. I think it was Sink Urix, how you pronounce it. He's been on this show. Interesting guy. One of the better liberals out there, in my view. A week before his car blows up or runs into a tree or whatever, and he says, I'm on the run, they're after me, I'm going to break the big story, and then boom, 2 hours later, this is what he said about the press lining up together for freedom in this country. And I agree, and I haven't heard a lot of media talk like this. I've heard you talk like this. I've talked like this. That's why I really salute people that do have the courage to do this. And I think the press should investigate what happened to Hastings. Here's that clip. We'll get George's take on it.
The Obama administration has clearly declared war on the press. It's declared war on investigative journalists, our sources. I think the only recourse to this kind of behavior by the government is to say back to the government, we declare war on you, and from this point forward, we should no longer, as a media as a whole, cooperate in any manner with the government in terms of when we're doing national security stories. We should withdraw all our cooperation, and we should publish everything we know, because it's a free press. It's not a free except for when the government tells me to do it press. And we've been way too easygoing with these guys. We've let them get away with this for years. We've let them tell us what to print, what not to print. And I say be done with it, and everybody should just get together and fire back, because no one else is going to defend the press.
That's right. No one else is going to defend the press, and that's what America's based on. We always group about Russia and China and Mexico persecuting the press like this. I mean, this should really wake everybody up and get the lapdog media to stop groveling. Instead, I've been seeing numbers that they're saying there's even more groveling by the press, and David Gregory saying, arrest the press. That guy's not the press. He should be out of there right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for a journalist to say that is crazy. And, you know, he should be relieved of his duties. He really should.
Well, I mean, the press should drum him out. I mean, if he goes to the National Press Club, everybody should turn their back and not talk to him. I mean, really, until he apologizes.
Oh, even an apology is stupid. I mean, here's one thing about an apology, Alex. You know, somebody does something stupid or horrendous, and then they come out and say, well, I apologize. They're only apologizing because the heat's on them. Whatever they did is still in their system. David Gregory is not going to stop feeling the way he feels. I mean, who is he, a stooge for the government? I mean, unbelievable. I mean, as a journalist, to attack another journalist for investigative reporting and for releasing a story that affects so many people worldwide and then chastising the guy is abominable.
I'm glad you see it that way, because that's exactly how I see it. As a media person who wears a small journalist hat, you wear a big journalist hat in your earlier incarnations, but more of an analyst now, I would say. I mean, all of us are analysts. And it's just outrageous that we've seen bipartisan members of Congress talk like this. These guys are out of control, and the press needs to understand something. If we all start standing up, they can't stop us all. But if we let them pick us all off one at a one, our children have no future. George Noory's our guest. They will sell out. The tickets, I'm told, are very close to selling out. You can go to the website that we'll give you after the break and get tickets to his big Toronto event, GeorgeNooryLive.com, GeorgeNooryLive.com. 4 p.m. box office opens, 5 p.m. doors open. I tell you, it's awesome having George Noory on with us. I got to say it, I admire people that have courage. And the direction that George Noory took Coast to Coast AM has just been phenomenal. We take for granted 11 years later that so much of this stuff's out in the open. He is a trailblazer. CoastToCoastAM.com. And some people could say, oh, well, they get into some wild stuff. I don't want to. They get people thinking. And that's a healthy thing, ladies and gentlemen. And George, you know, has people like me on there to unvarnished to say whatever I want, breaking it down, because George knows I'll have facts and documents behind what I'm saying. So very, very important. Be sure and go to his event, GeorgeNooryLive.com in Toronto. This Saturday, 6 p.m. event begins and runs past 9. I want to go right to phone calls. Karen in Arizona says she spoke with a retired NSA worker, to be clear. And Karen, what did this NSA worker tell you? You're on the air with George Noory.
Well, I mentioned to him And thank you for allowing me to talk to you and George.
Sure, go ahead.
I was at a town hall meeting. Before it started, I was talking to this gentleman, and I said, I'm glad Snowden came out and admitted that they were NSA was spying on American people. And this guy says, I worked for NSA for 30 years, and I retired from the NSA. We never did domestic spying. And I says, well, according to Russell Tice, I said, you know Russell Tice? He said, yes. I said, he did terrestrial, and he said, yes, they did. And I said,
well, ma'am, listen, I'm going to get George's take on this, but it's on record. Everything goes through the NSA. It's on record. He may have been compartmentalized where they were doing foreign intelligence, because large portions of it are that. Because it's all very compartmentalized. They don't know what's going on next door to them. Or it may not have been an NSA person either. So for someone to say now, we never spied domestically, is like saying the sun didn't come up this morning. George Noory.
Well, probably during his era, too, as well, Alex. They probably didn't have the technical capability to spy on all of us like they do now. So he might have been right telling her, hey, we didn't do that, because they didn't have the ability to do it. Now they do. And they're using it like crazy.
Absolutely. Thank you for the call, ma'am. I mean, just look, just because somebody says they're with the CIA or the NSA does not mean they are. Okay, most people that actually have been in it are not going to tell you. Let's go to a call from Joshua. Joshua, you're on the air with George Noory. Go ahead.
Hello, Alex.
Hey,
Hello,
buddy.
George Noory.
Hey, Josh.
It's great to be on the air with you guys. Yeah, I love both your shows.
Thank you.
Thank you both for waking me up. And what I was going to talk about was I seen on the InfoWars Nightly News about Fort McClellan and Monsanto, which I live very close to here. And the DU there that was used on Fort McClellan and people not knowing about it, Monsanto is really just right down the road from it.
Oh, yeah, the dioxin, they were involved in that. They incinerated a lot of chemical weapons there, too.
1 mile from the incinerator.
Yeah.
1 mile. But, yeah, the...
you have a question for George, brother?
Yes, sir. George, what do you think about all these rivers and streams and everything being poisoned, and they can't do nothing about it? They didn't even find out about it until like the early 90s. People knew they were doing it, but it wasn't covered by the press.
Good question. George, take us out to break. You're doing 5 more minutes graciously. What's your take on the fact that they go after environmental stuff that isn't bad, but then ignore all the real stuff?
I know, and they should be looking at the real stuff, the hard dumping by corporations and all this other junk. Look, don't get me started on fluoride either, because you talk about poison in the water system. That's it.
And we've got to get it out of our water. I mean, all these Harvard studies, you name it, and it's still in there. 5 more minutes with George Noory, and then we're going to have in studio Sheriff Richard Mack on solutions and a ton of news, and your phone calls as well. Stay with us. Back in 60 seconds. We're going to jam in a few more phone calls for George Noory, but don't worry, everybody else gets to talk to Sheriff Mack and myself coming up. George Noory, host of coasttocoastam.com, GeorgeNooryLive.com to find out about his live events, not just the one in Canada this Saturday that I'll be part of. And then, of course, everywhere I go, I see people talking about your show Beyond Belief, and I see the ads all over the place, George. That must be pretty successful.
That's a great little show we're doing. It's something I tape once a month, 4 shows, Alex. Love to get you up there as a guest. We tape in Denver, and they air it. It's an internet-based show. The company is called Gaiam TV, and they just wanted to get into television in a big way. And it's like Netflix. They charge a nominal monthly fee, but they also have access to thousands of self-help videos. They bought Vivendi from Universal, and they provide all that. I mean, so for a little fee every month, I mean, you can do everything. You
tell me when, and I'll set it up with Tom, the great producer of that show, and Coast, of course, along with Lisa Lyon, and I would love to come anytime you'd like. I love Denver.
If anybody wants info on the TV show, just go to our website, coasttocoastam.com. You click hosts at the top, and then it just opens up. The TV icon is there.
We've got it on screen for viewers as well. Let's real quick. Paul in Florida, then we'll go to Joseph. Go ahead, Paul. Quick question for George.
Yeah, hey, Alex. First-time caller. I just wanted to thank you, sir, for waking me up. I know you don't like to hear it. And as far as George, I'd like to articulate on the first part of the segment when you talked about how the New World Order has kind of rushed things and put everything, the whole plan into perspective and kind of rushing it in now, because it's almost like they are sort of bleeding out. The more we wake up, the more people we wake up, it seems like, they are rushing things with AI. And I'm trying to figure out, because I have kids and so forth, it's like I'm trying to figure out how fast it's going to be before they implement the AI, robotics. Google's coming out with its own glasses.
They're trying to get this takeover in as fast as they can, and it's so criminal. I mean, now it's in the news like, is it good that your smart TV's watching you? Not, oh, my God, it's 1984. It's like, oh, all the crazies were right. But again, I guess we end the interview, George, as we started it. This is crazy. We're at the crossroads.
They are panicking, Alex, and part of the problem with this, when we talk about the New World Order, you were in the United Kingdom at the Bilderbergs just a few weeks ago. These are groups of people, and people say, who are these people? Well, it's obvious. They're people who have so much wealth. I mean, just today they just revealed a report that 70% of the Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. These people never got paychecks. This is family money handed down over the eons, and they've got so much wealth. I'm talking billions of dollars.
They're playing God.
They're bored. They're bored. So what they do is they do the next thing. And, believe me, if you watch Eyes Wide Shut, the Stanley Kubrick movie, you'll see some of the things that they do.
That's what they really do. That's what
they're so bored.
Yeah.
But this is a game for them. This is world domination, and they're having a great time doing it. I'm sure they've got offices to go to, and they sit back and they go, how can we scheme to do this or do that?
I mean, it came out that Bill and Melinda Gates met with all the world leaders secretly again in the U.S. 2 weeks before Bilderberg to reduce world population. And then he's the guy going, by the way, I have a shot for you. I want you to die, but I want to reduce population. I mean, it's so incredibly obvious, and we've just got to wake up to it, and that's happening. George, I will see you, in the first 2 hours of Coast tonight?
I'll see you at midnight Central Time tonight on Coast to Coast.
CoastToCoastAM.com for station listings in your area, like 590 here in Austin, Texas. George, thank you for being a trailblazer and standing up for my family and your family and free humanity. We salute you.
All right, my friend. Be well.
All right, there goes George Noory. Adios to him. We're going to bring in Richard Mack. I believe he's here. Yeah, there he is out there. We're going to bring in Richard Mack next to talk about solutions. Sheriff Richard Mack, speaking of Supreme Court rulings, he beat the Brady Law at the Supreme Court. In studio with us, the great Sheriff Richard Mack. More of your calls, a ton of news, all straight ahead. Infowars.com is our website, and prisonplanet.tv. And he's here right now, Sheriff Richard Mack, good friend of mine, always good to see him in person, like a Clark Kent type guy. And he's here with us. He, of course, took it all the way to the Supreme Court, the Brady bill being unconstitutional, and beat it. One of the biggest Second Amendment victories we've ever had, and he's in the NRA Hall of Fame. SheriffMack.com. He's a best-selling author. He's making a film right now about getting the sheriffs and local police to wake up and take our counties and cities back. And that is the answer. We're going to get into all of that at the bottom of the hour. And Paul in Florida and Joseph and David and Empty Congress and Mike, we're going to get to all of your calls as well on any issue, because he's also been a talk show host off and on in his own right. He can speak to those issues. But I want to cover the waterfront with Sheriff Richard Mack, because he's gone to Arizona to work with the cold case posse. There's no doubt we don't know who Obama really is. There's no doubt those are fake birth certificates. We just don't know what exactly it means. Very bizarre, but he's been working on that. We're going to get his take on that. But first off, we've gone from being called kooks talking about NSA spying, because it had come out before, and kooks about the IRS harassing conservatives and libertarians, to it all being admitted, to it now coming out that indeed they are building FEMA camps, they are training to confiscate guns, that they have Army manuals on, quote, re-education centers, using the Soviet term. I mean, it even blows me away that they're really this evil and corrupt and trying to just hide it in plain view and get the police and military to go along with all the dramas, all the sitcoms, all the movies where the gun owners are the terrorists and the patriots are going to kill everybody. Yeah. I know it's backlashing, but I want to get your take just in general, where you think the state of the country is right now, and why the globalist, because we were talking about this last hour with George Noory, Everybody agrees they are accelerating the whole program. And I think we're at a danger that if it all comes out in the open and then nobody gets in trouble, it just sets the precedent. And now we know we're slaves, but we're slaves. Instead of it boomeranging and kind of swinging the pendulum back. And then I'm concerned if we start swinging the pendulum back, they're going to false flag. So, Sheriff Mack here to film and do interviews for Obama Deception 2. Great to have you here, my friend. You heard that general breakdown I just laid out. What is your State of the Union take on that for our viewers?
Well, it's amazing that a lot of this got put off until after the re-election of Mr. Obama. And you're right, we don't know who he is. We don't know where he's from. I'm not positive that he knows. Sometimes when we get into that. There's so much going on, and isn't it wonderful, though, to have the endorsement of the federal government that the things that you've been preaching and talking about for the last 10 to 15 years are now coming to fruition? You know, they can't call you kook anymore because everything you've been saying, John Birch Society, everything they've laid out 30, 40 years ago is starting to fall apart in our own government and starting to happen. You know, it is absolutely astonishing, Alex, that we have so many conspiracies coming to fruition and being proved. I mean, especially the IRS. Like, that's a big surprise to anybody. I mean, come on. In 1997...
Haven't you been harassed by them?
Never. My dad did.
That's right. I remember you telling that story, yeah.
My dad got it. But this was just 2 or 3 years after he left the FBI. And so what the IRS was doing, and in fact it was exposed in 1997 by Jennifer Long and a few other whistleblowers of the IRS, saying that IRS employees routinely fabricate evidence against citizens who they know cannot afford to defend themselves. My father fit into that. And so they just go after people who are middle class, who they know can't defend themselves, and so they thought my father would just pay the money. My father cared too much about justice and truth to do that, because he knew he was innocent. And he didn't have the funds to defend himself. But he had a friend, a lawyer, and a friend, a CPA, that went to bat for him. And after a year and a half of trying to destroy my father proved that the IRS had lied. Then Jennifer Long came along with other IRS agents, and there were 2 agents who refused to testify unless they were done so anonymously. And so they were hidden behind a partition, and their voices muffled, and they were silhouetted behind a partition. The only
violates the Constitution.
Sure, but the only other time that that's ever happened at Congress was when the Cosa Nostra whistleblower testified about the mafia. So we have the mafia and the IRS. Kind of a parallel there, isn't there?
Plus, our country was built without the IRS. It wasn't set up till 1913 for the Federal Reserve.
Right.
It didn't become popularly in use till the 50s. It has hurt our country, and they can abuse whoever they want, and people will tell you, I'm not going to criticize the government. The IRS will come after me. I know so many journalists and people who've been told, and they've even taped it, where the IRS says, stop covering these stories. They tell churches, stop praying. Yeah. They tell pro-life groups, go be pro-abortion, and we'll stop an audit.
Right.
That's in the news now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's even worse than I thought it was. I mean, what a criminal organization.
It is, and so I'm writing right now, I'm in the middle of writing the sequel to The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. As you said, it is the solution. It is. We can stop what's going on if we have sheriffs, local officials, and now we're even getting chiefs of police. We have chiefs of police on our board of directors, and we're getting peace officers and deputies. We have deputies standing up. Now, Deputy Lennick, who you know, because you put him out there on InfoWars, Stan Lennick from the Albany airport, when he refused to arrest the people handing out the flyers. Well, he was our Deputy Sheriff of the Year. And so we had Deputy Lennick at our convention. These are the types of people.
Oh, so you got to know him.
Oh, yeah, he's a great guy, good man. Now, his wife just had a premature baby, so he came in and left. He didn't stay for the whole thing, but he had to get back to babysit. And what a great guy. I mean,
will you give us his contact? We'd like to get him on.
Absolutely. You're talking about one of the most exemplary deputies in American history here with this Deputy Stan Lennick. And so who was our Sheriff of the Year? David A. Clark Jr. from Milwaukee. And so who was calling us racist and everything? In fact, even after we've named Sheriff Clark our Sheriff of the Year, Our CSPOA Sheriff of the Year, they tried to call, a local newspaper there tried to call us racist. Because
well, they do that so that people will Google it and then see that and not be part of it because they're desperate. It's like, oh, you don't want government-run health care? You're a racist. You don't want world government? You're a racist. Don't want to turn your guns in? You're a racist. They just use that on everything.
Well, Sheriff Clark responded. He said, I'm the only black sheriff in Wisconsin. I'm the only one in Wisconsin and in the entire country that was named Sheriff of the Year by the CSPOA. He says, it's a little bit ridiculous to go after them for being racist. You know, and I want to tell SPLC, and I've told him before, I've told Mark Potok, he and I've talked a lot. And
did you see his quote about me?
Not recently.
He said, Alex Jones doesn't build bombs, he builds bombers in Bloomberg.
Oh, wow.
Sorry, go ahead.
Wow, that's that's pretty.
How are things going with you in the SPLC right now?
Well, the lawsuit got thrown out. And I guess, you know, it was a technicality, and I didn't agree with it. And after they threw it out, I bagged it. So they still are going after me, and they've lied about me a little bit, but not nearly as much as.
Why did you originally sue them?
Because they had lied and put it out all over the country that I said, let's kill federal agents. And you know that my message has always been one of peace.
Oh, mine is too. But I mean, they said that I influenced in Bloomberg with no evidence that I made the bombers do it, basically.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, with no proof. And then they have the SPLC going, yeah, he builds bombers. And there's no doubt I could beat him on that. Yeah, I mean, the ADL's lost lawsuits for stuff like that. Yeah. I just don't have time to mess with it. And I mean, you know.
That was me too. And it's almost a full-time job to sue somebody like that. It is. It's a full-time job. And when I did the Clinton administration, as you mentioned.
And you beat them, though.
I beat their butts and all the way back to Washington. Miraculous case. Just an absolute miraculous case. But it was a David and Goliath story, and I love being David. And we're still creating Davids all across the country to stop all these horrible things.
Exactly. I mean, those of us that are working full-time just to wake people up, folks, we need you to be the ones that sue them and stuff. Yeah. I mean, we just had the lady in who started the lawsuit, won it at the Supreme Court over the gene patents. Austinite listener, took her 2 years, she did it.
Yeah.
And so, folks, you need to, when you're in the right, go after these people. And again, but the SPLC, they discredit themselves.
Well, of course.
Everybody knows that I'm not influencing Muslim bombers and that I'm the opposite of that. I mean, that is insane.
Well, they are insane. And what's really insane is our own government. Now, why doesn't the SPLC come out and assail the IRS? And assail the NSA and all these horrible other things.
They call themselves a civil rights group.
Yeah. So why don't they go after the government? They never go after the government. And the reason is because that's where they get a lot of their funding. They teach all these classes and get a lot of funding from the federal government. So they're never going to go after them. And that discredits them on their own. They are their own discredit. And the Southern Poverty Law Center is a joke and probably not even worthy to be on your show, quite honestly.
Well, they are becoming more and more of a joke, but they're also very serious players. You know, they are. They ran, with their top informants, ran the Elohim City compound that McVeigh was at. And then Howell tried to expose that, the ATF informant, and got shut down.
One of their informants came to the event in Valley Forge, where we spoke about 2 years ago, and a lot of us were there, Larry Pratt and a lot of big speakers, and that's when they supposedly got me. And then they tried to call me a little bit after that and do an interview. And I said, you guys have been lying about me for 17 years. And now you try to call me and ask me for my comment? You've been lying about me for 17 years. Why would you come now and ask me for a comment? You've never asked me for a comment before. They said, where have we lied about you? And I said, well, since the beginning, since I first filed my lawsuit. But most recently, when you said I said we should kill IRS agents, they checked their own tape and said, no, we made a mistake. We'll have to do a retraction. So they did a retraction.
Well, at least you did that. It's just unbelievable. That's not a mistake.
No, of course not. It wasn't even close.
I made the ADL change something one time that was just totally made up. And I had to have my lawyer get in touch with them and make them do it. I want to come back and get into Snowden, all of this, where you see things going, then phone calls. Richard Mack in studio. Sheriff Richard Mack is our guest. His dad was in the FBI. He's now passed on to hopefully heaven, I'm sure. In the FBI, and the FBI and all these agencies have always been compartmentalized. You've got the light side, the dark side. In the past, talking to really top historians and researchers, maybe 10% of federal agencies were dark side. Joel Skousen, who I respect, estimates it's more like 50% now, is dark side. what did your dad say to you about that? Why would the IRS come after him when he retired? I know they harass people they think are actually good people. What would your dad think today about what's happening with just all this open evil?
Well, my dad would be shocked with all of this, but he would also say, yeah, that's what they did to me. And my dad learned a lot about the subterfuge of government when they audited him. He thought that everything in government was pretty on the up and up. He served, 30 years in the FBI, served another 5 years in the Army Air Corps during World War II. He believed in government. He believed in what they were doing. He even believed at one point, until he and I had some extensive conversations, in the Warren Commission report. Why
did they go after your dad?
But he made some enemies while he was in the Bureau, and I guess that's why they went after him, because this is very rare.
Well, we had the son of a state police officer who called in earlier and said he was told to go after conservatives, libertarians, and that's come out in Texas, they've been told, to act like we're doing something, and it's really because we're the good guys, and the bad guys know it.
Yeah. Well, my dad wasn't a real constitutionalist or anything like that. He was a real solid, honest man. But I think also the other thing that might have been is they just started looking in the computer for people who fit the profile that the IRS wanted to go after, and they didn't see that he was a former FBI agent, and they just went after him because
it's funny you say that. My dad has said, please don't talk about this, but I just don't care. I will talk about it. He fit the profile, and later he learned they went after middle-class people that were known as being nice guys they thought they could push around.
Exactly.
And they told him in Dallas in the mid-'80s, they said, we are criminals, Mr. Jones. They said, we are criminals.
Yeah.
We will take everything you've got unless you pay us this.
Right.
And he was like, they said, we are criminals. Yeah. I mean, imagine. And my dad was like, Mr. Mom and Apple Pie. He's like, you're criminals?
Yeah. I thought you worked for the federal government. I thought you were here. I thought you were a service organization, IRS, internal.
But they said, we are criminals. He brought in his receipts and everything and the CPA stuff. And they said,
I don't care.
They said, hey, pal, we're criminals. They were there like, hey,
Well, so they told my father almost the same thing. They didn't say criminal, but they said, we will ruin you unless you pay. It's just
no, they said that too. They said, we are criminals, you will lose.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. And it's an extortion racket, and that's all this is. And that's those of us who still pay the extortion to stay out of prison, we're the cowards, and I admit.
But even when you pay them, they come. That was that retroactive tax act in the 80s.
Yeah.
And they came to him and said, pay. And he said, that's more money than I have if I sold my house. We basically had to sell our cars, everything. And he even fought them for a couple of years, but it didn't matter. Then they just got interest, and we basically took everything my dad had.
Well,
I mean, this country is pathetic.
My dad pulled one other card out, or he probably would have ended up like your dad. And he had a congressman that he used to work in the FBI with, Eldon Rudd from Arizona. I think that the final straw to help my father was Eldon Rudd getting involved in it. And if he hadn't, I think my father would have ended up paying, and we would have lost everything. Because my dad didn't have the money. My dad, to get more money in the FBI, you have to move. To get promoted, you have to move. My dad never wanted to move. He wanted us to be raised in southern Arizona, and in the same community where he was the FBI for 25 years, I became the sheriff. And I'm really grateful.
Did he live to see that? Yes.
Oh, yes.
But he liked that?
Yeah, he did. And
was he proud of your Supreme Court win?
He was. He was very amazed by it as well. He died 6 years ago, so he followed all of that very strictly. He didn't know or understand all of my motives behind it, but he knew and understood me. And he knew that what I was doing was the right thing. He didn't like Clinton, of course. Anybody that was honest wouldn't. But
yeah.
But it was just a miraculous time. My mother passed away just 2 years ago, and she was kind of pro-government too. But every time I would talk to her about, okay, what are we really doing here? Why are we supporting government blindly? I said, do you remember what they did to my father? Remember what they did to Dad? And she goes, oh, yeah. And I said, Mom.
But again, that shows how old-timers were so honest and so good.
Oh, exactly.
That even though the government had wrongly come after you and tried to ruin your life, she would still, it's just unbelievable. I mean, and that's why they do the crimes they really are engaged in.
Right.
The white slavery, the drug dealing. I mean, if the naive people who are well-meaning knew the truth, it's unbelievable. We'll be right back with Sheriff Mack. All right, some of your phone calls on a host of issues. are coming up. Sheriff Richard Mack is here in studio with us. We carry both of his books, The Magic of Gun Control and the one on constitutional sheriffs at InfoWarsStore.com. Every sheriff in America needs to get these, and they've been getting them. Because now you see sheriffs all over saying, why is the Forest Service armed here? And that's up on InfoWars.com today, where sheriffs in Colorado are throwing them out of the towns. We've seen cases where they're trying to persecute sheriffs and sheriff's deputies that don't arrest people who own guns and don't enforce unconstitutional laws on law-abiding citizens. We see moves to have the Secret Service be able to come in and go after sheriffs they're trying to pass in Colorado and places. And all that does is wake up the sheriffs and the police and everybody else. We need to get back to that healthy jurisdictional boundary of the states. So we're going to talk about that with Sheriff Richard Mack here in just a moment. First off, this broadcast is listener-supported, and everything we offer are things that I use, I believe in. Take the InfoWarsStore.com Seed Center with the best non-GMO, non-hybrid, open-pollinated, lowest prices, widest selection you're going to find anywhere. And we've got a whole bunch of the top brands. We did a year of research on this. This is just amazing what's in the InfoWars Seed Center at InfoWarsStore.com. Great to start a garden, whether you live in the country or the city. They've got fruit tree seeds. It's all there. InfoWarsStore.com. You'll find the Pro Pure water filters, 10% off with promo code WATER. You'll find the new film that you can pre-order and get a free documentary with it. The American Dream Free when you get State of Mind. We are the exclusive distributor of that. That is available at InfoWarsStore.com. And when you purchase with us, when you shop with the good guys, it funds our operation so we can go 110% against the globalist. And now is the time. People are really ready to wake up right now. They just don't believe we can have any change. We can have change. We've had incredible victories all over the world for liberty. But the globalists and their media aren't going to tell you. We've seen record low approval ratings for Congress, 10% in Gallup. We've seen record low readership and support and trust in major polls for mainstream media. We've seen record low support for Obama and all their globalism and their gun grabbing. That's why they put out fake polls saying Americans want to be spied on. Americans love Obama. But those are the public policy groups and globalist connected things. All the real polls show the opposite. And I know they're real because I'm all over the country. And I'm out there and I see it. And I talk to the police, and I talk to the military. Upwards of half the military I talk to are awake and listening to this show alone. Can you imagine? That must give fits to the New World Order. So please support us, InfoWarsStore.com. Or if you're out there listening on the radio, want to be able to call and ask any questions or order, use the promo code WATER to get 10% off on the water filters as well, 888-253-3139. And also support Sheriff Mack at SheriffMack.com. Sheriff...
Let me add one other thing.
Sure.
To your message just then. I don't want anybody to think that that book's just for sheriffs. Every American citizen should read that book.
Absolutely.
America's Last Hope. You need to know what he's supposed to know. He works for you. So everyone in America should get that book.
Absolutely. And learn about common law, Bill of Rights, Constitution.
Right.
They're breaking the law when they do this. Snowden shouldn't go to jail. The people that ordered them to illegally spy should go to jail.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, all the whistleblowers, they usually just fire them or send them to jail, and that's what they're trying to do to Snowden now worldwide publicly. And so it's an amazing process, but I believe there's been too much light shed on what has happened, that Snowden is being protected a little bit just because of all the light that's been shine on him. And so I think it's just an amazing process, again, of showing the corruption of Washington, D.C.
By the way, to correct something, I remember now what my dad said when he came home, and I've heard the story 30 times after. The head IRS lady had a meeting with in Dallas. She looked at him and she said, "We are white-collar criminals. You will not beat us."
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's like the mafia coming in your store going, we're the mafia. You will pay us or we'll burn this down.
Correct.
I mean, that's what they are.
You know, that comparison's been actually taking place in a lot of mainstream books. There's a book called The Sovereign Individual, written and actually printed, published by Simon & Schuster back about 12, 13 years ago. the sovereign individual. It talks about the Vince Foster murder being the most poorly disguised murder in American history. And these guys go right after it, and they compare the IRS to the mafia. They use the same tactics, for the same results, and this is just a mainstream book talking about finances, and it was done by a couple of world-renowned financiers, and it was not a book by Sheriff Mack or Alex Jones or any of these other radical extremists. It was done by two world-renowned economists. And again, the sovereign individual. And I read it, and I was amazed by what they exposed in there, especially about Hillary Clinton, who's, you know.
But I remember my dad, you know, who was like mainline, going around giving anti-communist speeches in Texas and going on the Dallas radio when he was like 15 years old, and in America. And
your dad did that?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And the point is, and then he stopped doing it once he went to college and got married and had me and stuff, and then my sister later. The point was, is he got married, had kids, and kind of moved on. But the point was, he bought into the whole thing that America's the good guys. And the point is, that was the perfect cover for criminals to come in and take over the government. Here's another person I want to interview, Mark Mazzetti, Pulitzer Prize winner, The Way of the Knife, the CIA, a secret army, and the war at the ends of the earth, admitting that they're just killing people all over the world with assassination teams illegally, including here in America. And then you have Michael Hastings saying, I've got big breaking news. I'm going off the radar into hiding. They're coming and visiting my family and friends. He said there are, and then the FBI lied and said, no, we're not. And then his car, an hour and 45 minutes later, blows up. Witnesses said it was driving down the road and blew up. It's up against a tree. Didn't run into the tree. You can see it. It came to the rest against a tree. The engine's blown almost 60 yards down the road. And they say, day one, don't investigate. Alex Jones is a kook. It's natural causes. What do you make of things like that when Aaron Swartz is exposing the scams in the NSA and the spying, and he's a leader and had a lot of money because he started Reddit, and then he says, I'm going to fight the FBI and the feds coming after me. I'm going to fight the Justice Department saying I've committed, you know, crimes, releasing info, and I'm getting married, and then they come and he's hung, and they immediately say, oh, he hung himself.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's death squads.
Another one of those accidental hangings, you know, but...
like the D.C. Madam, I mean, right. What do you make of this? Because it's definitely, they're killing a lot of people. I mean, this is, Gary Webb got shot twice in the head.
Well, that's why I'd like, you know, takes you back to the Vince Foster assassination. You know, I would really like you to have Mike Zullo on. You haven't had him on, right? The detective, cold case posse detective?
No, I want to get him on.
Yeah.
Like, let's write all this down. Let's get...
I can help you line that up, too. But he spoke at our CSPOA convention. I want people to remember that, CSPOA. C as in Charlie, S as in Sam, P as in Paul, O as in Oscar, A as in Adam, CSPOA, this Constitutional Sheriffs Peace Officers Association.
How evil.
Oh, I know.
You swear to it, and now you're going to follow it?
Oh, my goodness.
That's
what a
dirty
idea, yeah. But Mike Zullo presented his evidence to us all there, and we just said, look, this is not a required seminar to attend his class. Just go and see. If you don't want to go, if you're afraid of this, don't go. Well, it was the biggest attended class we had, and that was Saturday after the big day on Friday. So I am working on that. We're trying to get this exposed. Back before the investigation started, the truth is the same people who asked Sheriff Arpaio to investigate this came to me first. And I was living in Fredericksburg, as you'll recall, at that time. And this is just a year and a half ago. And I told them I didn't have time to do it, and I'd have to drop everything, and I'd have to charge them. And they go, well, who would do this for free? And we're thinking about asking Arpaio. I said, he won't do it. I said, he won't get involved in this. I've talked to him about this issue before. He thinks it's a bogus issue. But when he had 150, 200 people from the local Tea Party came, and they showed him some evidence that they really distrusted about the...
and then notice how Obama came after him.
Oh, I know.
Because that is a fake birth certificate.
Oh, totally.
First, they said they'd released it. When they hadn't, they released a receipt of one that you go and print out as a computer. Like, I've had to get them for my kids, and you go and they print out a receipt. Yeah. The Bureau of Statistics says, here's your receipt from the health department. Well, you've been working on it. Tell people what we know.
Well, the thing of it is, the one really working it is Mike Zullo, and he's a former detective, and he's working for free for Sheriff Arpaio on his cold case posse. And so Arpaio told his people and told me at the time, he said, look, These people asked me. I said, I know. I said, I'm surprised you took it because I told him you wouldn't. He said, no. He says, well, he says, just to get him off my back, I told him I'd investigate it. But I'm sure I'm just going to clear the president and everything's going to be fine. Well, the investigator did a thorough investigation, and it turned out to be just the opposite. That's when I bought onto it because I knew Arpaio was an honest man and that he would do this thoroughly and professionally. And Zullo has done a marvelous investigation. He's taken the birth certificate apart. Now,
Why would they put out such a bad fake, though?
Well, you know, I think they used a computer specialist that is young, okay, and didn't know typesetting off of...
Because here's how I knew it was fake day one. Okay. They used the fake system that comes in the fonts.
Correct, the typing font. Back in those days,
it's meant to look exactly. It's meant to look like typing, but it's the computer font because the letters are identical and the splats from a real typewriter are like snowflakes or fingerprints. Right. I mean, it's horribly fake.
And Zullo takes this. He takes it 9 layers. He takes the whole thing, and it was layered 9 times. And he takes it and shows you the mistake of all 9 layers. Now,
but why did they do something so fake? We found it day one.
Well, when you look at it at his face, if you just went in and showed it to Obama, he'll look at it and go, oh my gosh, this is great. This looks good. You just have to start peeling off the layers, and then you get an entire different view. So whoever it was a young computer tech, and they thought, you know, no one went back to it and peeled off the layers. They said, oh, that'll work. So they didn't do their homework, and they just had to get something out. And
then even left it in layers.
Yes, yeah.
It's crazy.
It was not a good job at all. So you have to kind of wonder who proofread that for him. But Obama needed to release something, and he did, and they just rushed it. And so what we don't say, and what you need to remember on all of this investigation, all of your listeners need to remember this. We are not, and this investigation is not, saying where Mr. Obama was born. We're saying that the birth certificate the White House released is a fraud, a fake, and a lie.
Have you seen Dreams of My Real Father? We sell it.
Oh, of course.
I mean, that's his mom, and that's that house, and that's the photos confirmed. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
So no wonder. The Kenya thing, that's why his wife said it in speeches and why it was in the Harvard deal. That was the diversion.
Yeah.
The truth was he had a different name, different dad, famous communist. I mean, oh, man.
And you know,
and Obama would spend the summers with him?
And he used
a communist pornographer?
Yeah. Now, you know he used his dad's name, Barry Soetoro.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Obama's name that he used to go to college. And so it's amazing that still, even the mainstream press, even people like Chris Matthews, who give this guy a free ride, and yet we know he used an alias. The only president ever to use an AKA.
Well, we had at least 2 other ones.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, who do you think he really is? Because, I mean, this guy looks like a Manchurian candidate.
I think he was raised up for this. You know, I think he was groomed by somebody. And, you know, when you look at...
well, no kidding. He was surrounded by top communists.
Davis. Yeah, wasn't it Davis?
Yeah, Davis, but then you got the Weatherman. As soon as he gets to... I mean, it's just...
I mean, if you look at the people he was around, then you have to know this was no accident. This was all planned. There's no coincidences in this government. There's no accidents. This was all devised and planned. And here he is, doing what he was told, doing what he was raised to do, destroy America.
And boy, they are. I mean, this Obamacare written to rip everybody off and make everybody go to part-time, and it's meant to hammer the poor, and then they say it's for the poor. And then this immigration thing, all this free stuff for unlimited millions.
It's for the poor. It's to make us all poor. Yeah, it's to increase the poor. And yeah, you know, right now we're having so much of this happen that so many sheriffs and local officials are waking up to the solution. And I am so proud.
And that's nullification.
Sheriff nullification, state nullification.
Because they can't go after all the sheriffs. I mean, if they can have 800-plus cities that are sanctuary where the illegals are above the law, why couldn't we have 800 cities where we ignore unconstitutional federal stuff? I mean, they're ignoring the law with the illegals and breaking the law. How about we ignore unconstitutional stuff?
Absolutely. It should be done that way. My lawsuit was an amazing miracle, but I do not recommend that sheriffs or local officials sue anymore. We tell them no. We erect the barriers. That's the name of our new DVD set from our convention, Erecting the Barriers. That actually is a warning that came to us from James Madison. We can safely rely on local officials to erect the barriers against the encroachments of the federal government. That's what he espoused, and that's what we espouse.
Well, that's why there's 3 branches federally, and then you've got multiple branches locally, because you don't want ever one group. They're always saying, get rid of gridlock. Let the government do whatever it wants. That's called Napoleon.
Right.
That's called Hitler. You do not want that.
I love gridlock. I wish they'd all go home. The gridlock was so strong that they would just have to go home. We're a lot safer when Congress goes home.
And I don't want to hear they're doing this to fight al-Qaeda. What do you make of the fact that now it's admitted the government runs the main al-Qaeda?
Well, you know, I haven't seen the entire evidence on that. I haven't seen the report.
Well, it's on record that they're using al-Qaeda in Syria.
Well, we do know that there's 35 terrorist al-Qaeda camps here in America. At least 35 that the government has documented. So there's probably more. But they're there, and why doesn't, if the government's going after terrorists, then why don't they go after these al-Qaeda?
Well, it's the same thing in England. They have radical guys on TV saying, kill everybody, take over. They leave them on TV. And it's the same thing here. They've got those guys over here. I'm telling you, it's on record that now it's come out that they're running these guys.
35. Well, how could 35 terrorist camps exist in America if they're not approved?
No, I've seen those on California. I've seen the California news shows the guys, jihadis, running with the machine guns and doing all the training and preaching, we're going to take over America.
They're here.
But then I have to lose my rights with the TSA. See, they're using it to take our rights.
Well, right now, and I fly all the time, and this is something that I've just come up with, that it's easier for a terrorist to enter America, especially through our southern border, than it is for you and me to get on an airplane. Isn't that amazing? American citizens, someone like me, who's dedicated his life to law enforcement and keeping the peace, it's easier for a terrorist to get into America than it is for me to get on an airplane.
Well, that's because they're using the terrorist threat, the synthetic threat, to take our rights. We're going to do 2 more segments to take your phone calls. Paul, Joseph, David. We're going to get to all of you straight ahead. Thank you for holding. Sheriff Richard Mack is our guest. I'm Alex Jones, Infowars.com. A lot of breaking news. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching on TV, here is from the 1980s, a G.I. Joe Cobra Hiss armored vehicle. And if you notice, that's how the police dress now, is like a Cobra trooper. That's how terrorists dressed in the 80s. And this is how the armored vehicles that were in Boston that everybody saw, that's exactly how they look. So we'll roll some of that footage over that. And you see in all the movies this image of martial law. Sheriff Mack, they're really trying to pump us for that, aren't they?
It's amazing how much is being exposed by Hollywood in the movies that they're putting out lately. It's really amazing stuff just like this. And Enemy of the State, I mean, that was done about 10 years ago. But a lot of exposure from Hollywood, which I don't understand.
What did you make of the Boston bombing and then taking half the city and locking it down and aiming guns at people that didn't even meet the description? Or Dorner, a black guy they're looking for, and they shoot up white women and Hispanic women in cars that don't even match it. I mean, what type of mentality is that?
Well, I think the whole thing is just that, the conditioning of our own psyche for the American citizen to be expecting more of that, to be ready for more of that. Going in people's homes, no knock. You know, no warrants, no nothing. Just going in, drawing down on everybody, checking their homes without the owner's permission.
And it's all about the officer's safety. The danger to the officers is going into a tyranny. They're not giving you all this unconstitutional power for no reason. They're going to gut the country.
And the police academies teach that, I'm afraid. You go home at night. The most important thing is you go home at night. There's a lot more important things than you going home at night, and that is, 1, keeping your oath, to protect and defend the God.
Absolutely, because if you don't, you lose everything.
Of course. And I heard you talking with George Noory earlier, and exactly what you said about that. These people need to understand our families are at stake also. The law enforcement community, the sheriff's community, all of them need to understand we have a stake in this. This is for our kids and our grandkids. Noory said he had 5 grandkids. I have 10. I have 10. And I can't believe it. You know, my pretty little blonde girl wife's only 55. She's got 10 grandkids, you know, and that's why I'm here, Alex. That's why I'm here. I love my 5 children and my 10 grandkids, and I want them to have a future.
Well, look at how they target police and military after they're out. They hate you because you're trained. I mean, it's unbelievable. This is real authoritarianism happening in America, folks.
Look how they hate Joe Arpaio. I mean, they've been going after Joe Arpaio for 4.5 years now, investigating him for one thing or another. Then they put on this sham called this recall against him. He beats them there. He always wins. He always lands on his feet. The guy just turned 81 years old, and he's still going strong.
Doesn't look like he's 80.
No.
A lot of people that know Joe, and they say he's the real deal. I mean,
he is. He is. I promise you, unless he's totally blown me away with his superficial nature, I'll tell you what. I've never met a more genuine person. I'm just telling you, that's who he is.
Tell us about this T-shirt. We're going to go to break and take a few calls.
Okay,
I apologize.
Anybody that becomes a member of the CSPOA.
That's a good-looking shirt. Who's your graphics person?
Actually, Sheriff Christopher, who we're helping out in Delaware, who we're trying to save his job and career and all that, who's been attacked by Beau Biden. We're helping him and his wife actually design this for us. And so if anybody becomes a member, hey, I love that shot. Go to cspoa.org, become a member, and you get the shirt free. We'll send it out to you. Okay?
Awesome. That's mine. I only wear it around the house.
Yeah, it's yours.
Police will freak out and walk around with a sheriff shirt.
Fishing. You can wear it fishing.
It's a good-looking shirt, actually.
Rex told me you like to go fishing, so you guys got to wear that and go fishing.
Absolutely. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. I guess it's time to do it anyways. That is my son's name, Rex Jones, folks. He's great, isn't he?
Oh, love the kid. Yes. What a smart kid. Gosh.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart. My book's dedicated to him, so his name's always been hiding in plain view.
Somebody has taught that kid well.
Oh, he's much better than I ever was. He's going to be amazing. I'm telling you, God has really given me the next generation. He wants to fight the New World Order.
I want to know what his IQ is.
We'll be right back. All right, I'm going to do some overdrive here. I apologize for everybody having to hold for eons. I'm horrible. I'm terrible. I'm the worst. Sheriff Richard Mack's here with us. Paul, you got cut off earlier. I wanted you to finish your question, and Richard Mack can answer it. Then we'll go to Joseph and others. Paul, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem, Alex. You are terrible. No, I'm just kidding. It's an honor to be on the phone with you, Alex, and of course an honor with Sheriff Mack. Big fan, sir. Just to quote you, something that you had said a long time ago. I will not idly stand by and watch my country die or be murdered by blatant politicians. Sir, we are with you. I think that most of America is awake. And if you could just give me 1 minute, Alex, just so I can get a good, just to kind of summarize it all, so that I look at it like it's almost we are all pieces on a board, a sort of a chessboard. And there's a reason why there's a black side, and a light, which is the white side. And whether it's Snowden or Hastings or Aaron Schwartz, we've all got to play our part on this board. And I believe that Sheriff Mack is like the tip of the spear on a local level. Because if I can wake up my sheriff and have him on our community and just our
exactly. Once people are totally awake, it's over. It doesn't matter how much propaganda, how much bull. You cannot occupy a group of people that know you're the enemy. And the globalist, Sheriff Richard Mack, isn't America really occupied by the globalist?
Yeah, they are. And what the caller just said is what everybody listening to your program today needs to do. Get a hold of your sheriff.
Tell them out there.
Relationship. Make sure you have a relationship with your sheriff. Make sure he has my book. Make sure he's read the book, and then you vet him and make sure he's on board to be a constitutional sheriff. If he will not defend you and your freedoms and your Constitution, tell him you're going to work to get rid of him. But do all this tactfully, do it honestly, do it as a patriotic American, but make sure you have a relationship with him and volunteer to be on his posse.
Absolutely. Anything else, caller?
Yes, do you remember something that you had said, Sheriff Mack, about you quoting Lincoln? America will not fall from the outside, but it will fall from domestic.
Correctly.
So
yeah. He said that we will never be destroyed from the outside if we lose our freedoms. It will be because we destroyed ourselves. We are there right now, and we have got to come to the...
Well, the globalists are doing everything they can to bankrupt everybody so they can take control. They're on record.
Correct.
That's the Cloud and Piven plan, which they admit they adopted. They are the enemy. Of course they say we're the enemy.
And there is a solution. We take back America sheriff by sheriff, county by county, state by state.
All right, caller, thank you. Good to hear from you. Joseph, thanks for holding. You're on the air. California.
Hello, Alex.
Yes, sir.
Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
First-time caller, new listener to the show. I'm out here in Southern California from West Virginia. And by the way, back there, they're pumping so much of that poison in the water that it's spewing out of they're spewing out of the faucets in globs and chunks of it for weeks at a time, at least 2 weeks out of the year. Out here in Southern California, it's the insane what's going on out here. Government's been controlling everyone's minds for who knows how long. They're out here charging every man they can with domestic violence, charging them $400 to put in a domestic violence fund, charging hundreds.
Yeah, they want to get everybody into the criminal justice system. That's why if you drink one beer now, they'll take you to jail while the government ships in narcotics. They want to get everybody in the system with a record so that you have no rights. Anything else, Joseph?
Yeah, I got a lot more that you're
Well, look, I'm going to come back to you real quick to have your question for our guest here, since you held a long time. And then we're going to go to David, and then we're going to go to Empty Congress and Mark and a few others. And we're going to continue here live on the other side. Some stations carry this fourth hour, but everybody can find us at Infowars.com/show. All the free feeds there. All right, we're taking phone calls. He got cut off by the break. We were talking to Joseph in California, and let's comment on what he just said, then we'll go back to him. He was talking about how now I read about these cases all the time where if your neighbor hears yelling, the police come and somebody goes to jail, and then they'll come in without warrants, they'll taser people. We've all seen the videos where there's not even domestic violence going on. Or you yell at your kid in a parking lot and CPS comes and takes them because there's no law. They just call it neglect. Now the New Jersey Supreme Court said CPS doesn't even need neglect. Take any children they want for any reason. They ruled that last week. So there's this system. We know tyrannies go after the general public and make them criminals, and then real criminals are left alone. I mean, I want to be like an illegal alien where I don't have to have insurance and I'm left alone. And of course, there's that phenomenon. So what do you say to that?
What I say is that we have got to get the sheriffs to build these barriers against all of that. We have got to have sheriffs that don't allow the CPS to take children away for those ridiculous and frivolous reasons. It's been going on for decades.
Over 1 million kids a year.
Yeah, and it's big money. It's big money, and that's why they're doing it. CPS is a filter of big government money, and so we have to have sheriffs that don't allow this. We've got to have sheriffs that become the guard of the county, guard of the Constitution. That is exactly what we're doing at CSPOA. All of it was born out of the book, The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. We now have this very strong organization, the CSPOA. I'll tell you what, every one of your listeners needs to get that video through your organization here. We'll have it ready in about 10 days. We already have...
Sure, talk to Weldon. We'll get it and carry it because I know these are important events you're putting
absolutely. on. This is not just education. This is living proof that what we're doing, that the solution is working.
You're now reaching thousands of sheriffs.
Thousands. Yes.
This is unbelievable. And they're scared. They're mad at you.
Yeah, they're correct.
Because it's supposed to just be the foreign groups like the ADL and Southern Poverty Law Center are supposed to just waddle in and say George Washington's a pig and freedom is scum and communism's the way and your guns are evil. And we're supposed to just fall down and do what they say.
I mean, that we have sheriffs now standing for the Second Amendment in New York and in Colorado and in Utah.
What do you make of them going after that sheriff in Florida?
Well, I've talked to Sheriff Finch numerous times, and it is exactly the pattern that happened to me when I went after Clinton on the Brady bill. The exact same pattern, except they didn't arrest me. The governor in Arizona was on my side, which saved my butt. There's several things that saved my butt. One of them was the NRA.
I want to get Finch on. We've been in contact with him.
Finch needs to be on, and we need to do some fundraising for that guy because he doesn't have a job. He's out of work. His family has no income. He's done financially in about 6 weeks. He's done. Now, we're taking donations for him at CSPOA, but we need to do this big time. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because he stands up for the Second Amendment, and then now if we don't back him, it's a war, folks. Yeah. This is time to take action here. Yeah. Joseph, you had one other point real quick.
Alex, after they got me in the system, they started harassing me. I've never talked about planes or taps on the phone ever before in my life. They tap my phone. They listen in my house. They listen in on my cell phone. They finally They harass me beyond belief. That whatever my question would be is, who is doing this? It's probably the people who are contracted by the FBI or CIA. I'm the half Lebanese American, and then they finally made up lies about me and took my daughter away from me. And when the cops came here and took her, they slammed my head and messed up the.
Well, what they do is they beta test the police state on groups that are authorized, and now they're moving from Muslims to conservatives, which will be really hilarious because conservatives supported a lot of this evil, and like Hitler went after unpopular groups first, the gypsies, and then moved on. This is a standard thing. I would get out of California. I mean, or at least get up to the middle or northern area.
You know what? One of the worst ways they track you and put you on their list is with a concealed carry permit. Yeah, and I tell you, there was one time I actually went to get a concealed carry permit after I left the sheriff's office, and I told the guy no. He was a friend of mine teaching the class. I said, "There's no way I can do this, and there's no way that anybody should have those permits. I'm sorry, but it puts Interpol. Interpol has those lists. The lists go directly to the NSA, and you're being watched because they know they don't register your gun; they register you. Yeah, and so yeah, very dangerous to get on any of those government lists. One of the worst ones is concealed carry permit. You're on every list, every state, every police agency in the world.
All right, thank you for the call, Joseph. Let's go to David in California. You're on the air.
Alex?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What's it called? I'm a little nervous being on the spotlight, but I got, what's it called?
Yeah, your phone's real bad. Just try to get a quick question out.
I'm not, well, I have actually a lot to say. Can you hear me better now?
Not really, but go ahead.
That there are two fronts in the globalist agenda. There's a religious and a political front. And the movies in Hollywood and the music industry, they're basically outlets to preach and condition condition the population to go with what they want to go with, right?
Yes.
And so, what's it called? We know that the globalists at the very top, they're occultists. And you ask yourself, what do these globalists think about their children and what's going to happen to them? You got to understand that the religion, and to understand the rationale, if you want deeper insight on what their religion is about and what they believe in, I suggest you Google search John Todd. He's an ex-Illuminati who went around Christian circles exposing the globalists. And
yeah, no, I've heard some of his recordings. Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he's talking about how in the one of the last things they're going to do is they're going to go after our guns, and they're going to use a fuel crisis to cause World War III. He was saying that in the early 70s, okay?
In the 80s, yeah. So specifically, you have a question or a comment?
Well, my comment is that that according to the Todd, that the child belongs to the group. They don't belong to the and they're considered an adult at the age 5. They're not considered property or under the care of the parents. And so
okay.
And they also believe that they're going to come back to life. They're going to be reincarnated. That's why they push their agenda so adamantly. Because
God, could you imagine reincarnating the Congress we have right now?
I mean, reincarnated as a bunch of dog crap. Excuse me. God bless you, sir. I get your point. No, I mean, the globalists are into a bunch of weird stuff. Let's go to empty Congress. Speaking of Congress, go ahead. You're on the air, sir, or ma'am, or whoever you are.
Hey, guys. Great to talk to both of you today. Beautiful day here in Tennessee.
Thank you. What's on your mind?
Well, a couple of things. I used to be a plumber. That was my main profession when I first got out of high school.
A farmer?
And a plumber.
Okay.
And we were talking about the water quality and how they were accusing people of being terrorists here in Tennessee if they question their water quality.
Yeah, no, there's an article. In fact, here it is right here. Bureaucrat, water complaints could be act of terrorism. This is actually in the Tennessean. And they said complaining is an act of terror. We may arrest you if you don't like the fluoride in your water.
Oh, for God.
I'm not joking. Not worshiping government's now an act of terrorism. So what's your point on that, sir?
Well, when I first started as a plumber, the water was crystal clear. Now, this is, I'm 38 now, so that's been a few years back. At this point, the water is milky white. It's as white as my wife's car.
Oh, yeah. No, they dump, on record, people, when I showed articles earlier when I said this, they dump radioactive isotopes, lead, mercury. The so-called fluoride stuff, they call it, is up to 350 chemicals. Usually it's only about 100. Mm-hmm. And that's why everybody's dying. I mean, the government is murdering us. No wonder people can't get upset, Sheriff.
Yeah.
They're just brain damaged.
Yeah, they're dying. They can't complain. Yeah.
Whatever you do, don't get a probe here at InfoWarsStore.com. Just drink the water, take the aspartame, trust the government, take all the shots. Don't listen to me, folks.
Well, we know two poisons for sure that they tell us are putting in water: chlorine and fluoride. Those are poisons.
That's right. And again, they even take aquifer water in Austin. They know it's crystal clear and good, and spike it with all this garbage. But again, I went to Hot Springs for a week and happened to be a big statewide water convention there. People can look that up. It was about two months ago. It was right when Jim Tucker died when I was there. People, and it was there. They were in the hotel, the Arlington Hotel at the convention center. And I probably had, I don't want to exaggerate, 50 of the guys who were the head water guys come up and say, I'm a listener. Believe me, we know it's poison. We still are forced to buy it under state law, but we do not put it in the water. So the good news is they know.
Yeah, they know. Yeah.
But, I mean, it's incredible. So as a plumber, what do you think all that is?
Well, basically, I mean, once they put it in there, there's nothing you can do other than filter it. And once you filter it, you're good. But, I mean, you just have to make sure your filters are up to date and have to make sure that you buy plenty of backup filters in case, you know, the economy goes to crap and you can't get any more.
Yeah, it isn't a joke. They are. This is a chemical weapon attack.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, the government is chemical weaponing us. I mean, they're bad guys, folks. I appreciate your call. Let's jam in one more, and I apologize to the others. Mark in California, 1340 AM listener. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, follow the shining example of this listener and go door to door, as I have many times during his live broadcast on KOMY 1340 of those of you, and just say, would you please tune your radio to KOMY 1340 right now and call two people. Don't have time to talk more. It's a very important broadcast. Secondly, last Tuesday, I live here in San Jose. I ran for city council as the write-in candidate and lost to Roca here in District 9, but I go every once in a while to the city council, and last Tuesday I got to talk to them about Melissa Melton's interview with Bill Gates and how he wouldn't respond to her statements about eugenics or the 48,000 Indians who are permanently paralyzed, you know. And anyway, it does go on the net, so follow me on that. And also, I have a question to Sheriff Mack in regards to this thing with Snowden. Nancy Pelosi showed up here in San Jose on Saturday and said that Snowden broke the law. 2 times she said that. And
she got booed. She got booed.
Yeah, she did. She sure did, and she just repeated herself. But, I mean, what law did the guy break? I mean, many of us already know that the TV and the computers can watch us and listen to us, and Judge Napolitano brought that up. They can just flick a switch whenever they think somebody's a terrorist. I mean, what law did Snowden break, Sheriff?
In fact, guys, cue that up to her getting booed whenever you're ready, because I'm going to keep going so we can talk to.
I love watching that.
yeah, we're going to play. I meant to play that.
He did not break a law, but he broke policy, and he broke also the inner rule that you don't embarrass the NSA. That's their inner rule. And the FBI has the same rule. You can do a lot of stuff, but don't embarrass the head people there. And so that's really what he broke. And now they're tripping over each other to try to get this guy.
Actually, I hadn't got to this yet. Donald Trump, and I appreciate your call, sir. God bless you. This is up on Infowars.com, just broke. Donald Trump says Snowden should be assassinated. Extradition process and justice system are too slow for would-be presidential candidates. So he's calling for something
against the law.
It's illegal.
That's illegal what he's doing right there. That is against the law. He should be investigated.
Well, but I mean, it's also under NDAA. I don't care if they say they pass a law to kill citizens. If the godlike, president Barry Soetoro says so, this just shows how this is authoritarianism. It's illegal. They're spying on all of us. They've been caught.
Right.
The CIA director brags, yeah, your dishwasher's watching you, to Wired Magazine. That's okay. Snowden goes, yeah, that's all true. And they're spying on the media, which had already come out, and the media is like, kill him, arrest us. I mean, we want to have our rights taken.
Now, actually, Trump, in making that comment, has put himself under a probable investigation. Well,
but it won't happen. They'll love it. No, it's like Nazi Germany. People said, arrest all these people, round them up.
They made him a brown shirt.
I mean, I'm going to tell you, Donald Trump is a mega piece of trash. And again, he only did the whole Kenya thing to get attention for himself and then kill the investigation. And that's what I've been told by Jerry Corsi and others.
You just follow what happened. That's a natural conclusion, what, of course, he said.
And notice he got his casinos right after that.
Yeah.
In Chicago.
He was broke. And then all of a sudden, he's a multi-billionaire again. Yeah.
Donald Trump, what a disgusting thug.
Yeah.
I mean, he's here saying, kill an American citizen that exposes crime.
The Southern Poverty.
Are we going to stand up for him?
Yeah.
What are they going to, Snowden's car is going to blow up?
Yeah. What would the SPLC say if you and I said that? That we should kill somebody else?
Watch out, they'll edit that.
Yeah. So, did not say it.
Hey, a lady called in and said, could this be a weather weapon with this tornado? And I said, they have major weather modification, but it's mainly weather systems. I said, that's Tornado Alley, probably a real tornado. They just go on the news and say that I said Obama sent a tornado and keep reporting it every week. Just lying to their audience. I mean,
a tornado hit our convention Friday night, and we were evacuated right when I was giving Sheriff Clark his plaque. We were evacuated, and so we were in this little tight room. So I huddled everybody together, got up on a chair, and I continued the presentation. We have all that on tape.
Where was that?
At the in St. Charles, Missouri, at the Ameristar Hotel.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was amazing. So we didn't let him get in our way. We just kept doing it.
So it was probably Big Sis dressed in a Hitler uniform, steering the thing. It's a joke. MSNBC. Go ahead, go with it, you liars. And she's a space alien too. She said, I believe giant wasps run the New World Order from underneath the building. I never even made that joke before. Actually, it's Easter bunnies, Rachel, Mr. Maddow. I mean, Miss Janet Reno, whatever her name is.
And people ask me why I enjoy these shows so much.
That's ridiculous. Let me tell you, these people crave power. What is it about bad people, before we take a few final calls? We got Pelosi clip in a minute. I found that bad degenerates and weirdos, they hate those of us that aren't like them. I mean, they hate good people. It's like a criminal instinct to just, and to get crazier and crazier till they get caught.
Well, it almost seems like that, but if you look at what they've done going after the good people of this country, and I go back to Sheriff Arpaio, here's a guy just trying to do his job. He's the only sheriff in the country, basically the only sheriff in the country really doing something about illegal immigration, trying to protect his people. The crime has gone down while he was doing that. Now they come out and say that he was racially profiling, and they still keep going after him. And
if 1 million Americans showed up in a Mexican city, we'd all be arrested.
Yeah.
I mean, no other country lets you do this. Why is America supposed to just be wide open?
No, we're not. And the crazy thing of it is that's the only thing that the federal government is assigned to do is protect our borders. They have like 4 law enforcement assignments.
And this new border bill gets rid of that.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the Gang of 8 thing, they named them right. Gang of 8. Yeah, they are a gang of criminals, and that whole thing is absolutely something America will not survive if this passes through. This is something that's irreversible.
Well, it's like Ron Paul said, if everybody wasn't going to get welfare and all this stuff, and if these political groups didn't see the government as their friend, they'll do whatever they say on average. I mean, it's over. I mean, and then it's like Pat Buchanan said, when they try to take the guns, it's going to be a civil war.
Yeah.
Which I guess the globalists want again.
I don't know. It certainly seems to be heading that way, and what we are doing at CSPOA is trying to head all of that off at the pass. What better thing could a sheriff do than to head that off at the pass?
And I'll tell you, if enough sheriffs and enough counties and cities just start doing the right thing, the feds can't stop it.
That's correct.
And there's nothing they can do.
There's nothing they can do. But we have to have a good size and amount doing it. And our goal is to get at least 1,000. There's 3,100 counties in the country. We need at least a third.
Absolutely. We need to get you on Coast to Coast AM.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, I'm not going to bug George if listeners think that's a good thing.
Come on,
I think
George,
it is.
are you still listening?
He probably is. He's a great guy. I'm on the show tonight. I'll talk about you tonight. I'll bring it up.
All right.
Let's play the Pelosi clip. Here she is saying that Snowden's a criminal when she's the big fat criminal. Here it is.
Answered. And as far as Snowden, he did, I may be in disagreement with you, he did violate the law in terms of releasing those documents. We don't know. I understand.
I understand I'm an arrogant piece of crap.
But he did violate the law. And the fact is
they're really shouting it down. I love it.
Again, we have to have the balance between
between
security.
Before they weren't
privacy.
spying on us. Now it's a balance to have giant command bases built everywhere, and they're going, "We listen to everything you do." Ha ha ha! This guy goes, "Yes, they are. Arrest him."
Yeah, the balance. First
they say you get security by giving up your liberty when all you ever get is hell on earth.
Right. There's no balance. There never has been a balance. They expose that there's been all these crimes taking place, and now they're saying they're trying to balance it. Come on. No, the only balance.
Well, plus they've had all this NSA when 9/11 and all this happened.
The only balance we want is the states taking back the balance of power they're supposed to have. Again, folks, the balance of power is the solution, and that is the counties.
Absolutely. Let's talk to Mr. C on the marathon bombing drills. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I just wanted to say what I was watching immediately after the Boston Marathon happened, the bombing happened. I was watching different channels, different TVs. On some of the news stations, they were saying, oh, it was okay, it was just a drill, it was just a drill. Then one reporter came on and said, oh, we're so lucky today that they was having a drill, that there's so many EMTs and ambulances around to help.
No, I know. We have those
hurt by the bombing.
We have those clips. We need to put those back together for people. And then it turned out they had a drill, which they lied about, and they said, don't look at that. And then it turned out the brothers were on CIA payroll being sent overseas again. Did you know that, Sheriff Mack?
I did not know that.
Sounds like a familiar story, doesn't it?
Doesn't surprise me. Not at all.
You know, they were going to blame it on the Tea Party in the drill. Did you know that? The Tea Party was supposed to be the bombers, yeah.
Wow.
What do you make of that?
As soon as it happened, that's what I was afraid was going to happen.
Oh, it's called Operation Urban Shield. They had drills before, during, or supposed to have them after. Where a group wearing Patriot outfits blows up the event.
They wanted to catch up with the IRS attacking Tea Party groups, huh?
Well, yeah, you blow yourself up and blame it on them, but that didn't work. So then they had their cutouts, who they really had out there. I mean, the older brother was definitely a CIA operative. He was sent under Zbigniew Brzezinski groups overseas to infiltrate al-Qaeda groups, who they're using against Russia. He had fake names. It was allowed to go. The Russians blew his cover a few years ago and said, well, who is this guy? Does he work for you? Why is he allowed to fly on fake names? What's that sound like to you?
That sounds like a operation that's going awry.
We had calls about that and saw some of that at the time. We should recollate those clips. Have you found those clips online again? Because I was just reminded of that they were saying right away, it may be a drill. We think it's the drill they were having.
Yeah.
And they're like, let's not talk about the drill. Mr. C, do you have those clips?
I can't find them. I don't see them online anywhere.
Yeah, I remember it happened, and I've seen them once, and we need to see. We don't even put on our best evidence. It's just overwhelming. Send them to showtips@infowars.com. That's it. I apologize to Frank and Carl and Carol, but I got to most of you, and I'm going to go interview this guy for Obama Deception 2, and then we'll be back tonight, 7 o'clock Central, with InfoWars Nightly News. If you have a PrisonPlanet.tv membership and you haven't shared it, please share it today. To be here for the next 3 hours. Congressman Issa has issued Benghazi subpoenas to the State Department, and more news is coming out on that front. It was in Reuters a few days ago, but has gotten really no attention, that thousands of U.S. troops have been deployed to an area in Israel by Gaza in case of some type of collapse in Egypt, and millions of people trying to influx into Israel. That is unprecedented, and then it's just back of the newspaper. We've got Putin confirming that Edward Snowden never entered Russia and is in the customs area in the no man's land, and he's told Snowden to leave. And on top of that, the media is running around again trying to frame this as if Putin or the communist Chinese are involved. And I'm not in some love affair with those guys. It's just that they're not the globalists that run my country and that are running it into the ground. We've not been conquered by Russians or Chinese communists. We've been conquered by mega banks that will work with anybody to consolidate power in America and deindustrialize us. That's part of their score to settle with this republic. You can say the globalists are allied with some of the communist Chinese leadership to get cheap slave goods to leverage out markets, but that's as far as it goes. So the attempt to brand Snowden as some foreign spy, and we're seeing more and more of that, it just doesn't fly. And then they can put out the idea that any whistleblowers are basically involved in espionage. And that's why Hong Kong was smart to say you need to leave. That's basically what happened. And now Russia is smart, saying you stay in the customs area. We're not letting you in Russia, and we need to say you need to go. You need to go. And now they've got Kerry and people backtracking, the Secretary of State going, okay, Russia isn't involved in this. But when you see Meet the Press saying arrest members of the press that Snowden talked to, that is about rolling out a war openly on the press and arresting people that expose government corruption. This is Soviet Union, Maoist China, Fidel Castro's Cuba. This is beyond stuff that Hugo Chavez would do. And this is starting to border on Hitlerian. This is how it started in 1935-36. It took Hitler a couple years to start going after the press. First, he went after army personnel and his own Nazis in the SA who weren't, going along with the full program. And after he consolidated power in the government, which they're trying to do with the NSA now, and over the media, then they go after everybody else. And again, you've committed no crime, you pay outrageous taxes, you bow to the government, you don't care about freedom, you think you're safe. It's the opposite. You are a lunch to these people. You are a lunchable. You are low-hanging fruit. Those of us that fight the system, those of us that are aggressive, those of us that are highly visible, historically and currently, I can tell you, are among the most safe of people. The only folks they kill, in my research, are people that have a smoking gun and who have extreme credibility. And Michael Hastings, associate editor of Rolling Stone, said, I've got bombshell info on the CIA, the NSA spy scandal, and on women and sex with Petraeus. And what was behind that? Well, it was clearly sex operations. It was clearly sent in to compromise him. So it's an internal fight between the Army and the CIA. We've confirmed that across the board from a raft of insiders, from Steve Pachenik to you name it. A lot of them off record, I'm not going to say. Some of them are guests you hear on air, but some of them are off record. But Wayne Madsen's on record, many others. And that's when you get killed, is when you've got something, oh my gosh, he's very credible, people believe him, he's got the ear of the progressive, but also the conservative press and the liberal press, killing. And I said on Sunday, well, I said last week as well, that I don't believe that Michael Hastings was killed in a remote control accident, even though DARPA's on record saying all the new cars can be remote controlled instantly by the government. They have the code key, backdoor passwords, hardwired into everything wirelessly. All these cars are now wireless, on record, especially this Mercedes, and they can take control of it and drive it better than a race car driver can. In fact, you can program the computer to take someone on a route and drive at speeds that the computer can drive at, but that humans wouldn't be able to control the vehicle. I mean, 5 states already have Google cars driving down the road. By next year, it'll be 20 plus. They estimate within 5 years to 10 years, every state. You're not in Kansas, folks. That's what people say. Oh, you've got such courage. You don't care if they demonize you or attack you or even kill you. Yeah, because I'm dead already. You understand that? This plan, if it goes through, folks, it's over. Do you understand that? This is the power of hell being released. Now, there's Forbes. Radiation detected in drinking water in 13 more U.S. cities. Cesium-137 in Vermont milk. God help us. God help us. They add it to the water on record. The hydrofluorosilicic compound is mined out of major deposits of limestone, and when they play out in a uranium mine, they turn it to a fluoride mine. They put uranium in your water. Welcome back. I'm your host, Alex Jones. Your calls and a ton of news are coming up in the next segment. Then George Noory is going to be joining us on the NSA, on IRS Gate, on just the state of the world. Always good to get my friend George Noory of Coast to Coast AM on. Sheriff Richard Mack is here in Austin to be interviewed for Obama Deception 2. And while he's at it, we're going to have him in studio in the third hour today. And that should be quite informative, talking about solutions and how to take the states back. We're going to get into the Supreme Court ruling on the Voting Rights Act. The reason the Voting Rights Act doesn't even matter is because of electronic voting fraud. That's the real fraud that's going on, so I'll give you my take on that a little bit later. But to understand what's happening is, in 1913, private offshore banks were able to get a beachhead and take control of our money supply. And then they bankrupted the country artificially, put us into emergency receivership with the emergency acts they put in 1933, the War Powers Act that Roosevelt put into place. And then in 1947, the National Security Act, that whole shadow banking system was able to be given total government power and immunity above the law. Basically diplomatic immunity and secrecy. So that really marks a major milestone in our road to tyranny. And then from there, it just gets worse and worse. And now our military's under NATO command, and Congress is told that, and Congress does nothing and plays like they're stupid because they've been paid off. Just like Congress comes out and says, we don't want to go to briefings, we don't want to know about the NSA. Because the predecessors voted this treason into place. And most of them are blackmailed. Most of the Republicans and Democrats on record, and that's why it's always coming out, the scams they're involved in, the fraud, the weird sexual stuff, they are identified by the power structure as being corrupt, and they are immediately promoted to the top. And any FBI agent, any CIA person will tell you that when they start going on field operations, first it'll be, here's some high-class, high-dollar hookers, have sex with them. And if you don't have sex with them, you're never moved past a desk job. Or you're never moved past basically low-level duties. And then if you have sex with the hookers, then it moves up to take some stolen goods. Just like they tried to corrupt Serpico in the New York detective's office. And I've had Serpico on. We've said, how many of the other police were corrupt? And he goes, in the detective narcotics units, all of them. And then they shot him in the face over it. And only our naivete allows this to continue. Only letting drugs be illegal. They've had Northern European countries legalize drugs. In most cases, drug use goes down by over half. Always over a third. And they put up billboards showing how pathetic drug addicts are. But see, the globalists have already taken over there, so why should they even bring in drugs and sell them? They've already got full control and 75, 80% tax rates in places like Denmark. So why should they even let people ship drugs in and then have it illegal? So I guess that's one good thing. Once we're fully captured by the globalists, they'll legalize the drugs and we can stop all this craziness. But I'd rather stop it now. How many drug dealers are on record going public? In my film, Kevin Booth's American Drug War film, he interviews drug dealers who say, no, we don't want drugs decriminalized. And then they get Christian conservatives to say they should be illegal so the government can ship them in, 4 big banks that get the money and get to launder it. These are the points I'm getting at here. And then they've got people driving around Austin, Texas with bumper stickers saying, I pay carbon credits to this group. And I go look up the group, and it's either Al Gore's group or the Rothschild group or the Clinton-Obama group. There's only 5 different major carbon exchanges. And then you find out that all these corrupt globalist authoritarian mobsters are being paid money on coal, on oil, on plastic, but then people volunteer to have special credit cards that they swipe that send money like an indulgence. Like, when the Pope said, get your family out of hell or out of purgatory, in the U.S. will have robot cars, and then they're going to replace humans because the insurance is going to be jacked up. And I told you this a decade ago because I know how they work. Now they've announced it. We're going to charge you a lot more insurance if you're a human driver. You're supposed to get in your cars and have them drive it for you. And that's what this new Mercedes did, and the new Lexus, and a bunch of others do. Soon you'll be able to get low-cost cars that don't have this, where it drives. Oh, you were going over in a lane? I'm taking over. You're going too fast? I'm going to brake. This is horrible, but again, they always sell tyranny, implantable microchips, face scanning, smart homes that spy on you and control everything you do, and tattletale on you. All of this is always sold as a status issue. And I'll never forget in WashTech, back when the Washington Post in about 98 to 2002 was putting out a digital but also monthly hard copy magazine called WashTech, they had their head technology writer brag that he'd been in with DARPA. You can look this up. And that they were going to promote a movement of body modification and tattooing, and I'm not saying that's bad if you do that. My point is they were going to promote it in the movies and TV to prepare. This is DARPA talking to you like you're an idiot, telling you the secret, to prepare you to accept implantable chips, and that there would be pills you swallowed that reported to your doctor what you were taking through your wireless internet, part of all prescriptions. I told you this 2 years ago, wrote articles about it. We had the companies putting it out, threatened to sue us if we didn't make modifications to our articles. It was in the Wall Street Journal, the Daily Mail, the Associated Press, Reuters, and a bunch of other publications the last 2 days that indeed that's the plan. You won't get a prescription unless it's got RFID in it. Forget to take medicine. These pills will tell your doctor. Wall Street Journal. See, people keep saying, man, this guy sounds crazy, all this stuff. I'm telling you what they said they're going to do. I want to explain something to you. They say they put cancer viruses in your vaccines. They say they put hydrofluorosilicic acid in your water to give you cancer and dumb you down and sterilize you. They say they're spraying aluminum dioxide, barium salts, and also some radioactive isotopes to weather modify worldwide. It's public. It's called geoengineering. But the public goes, I heard, won't even look it up, won't even watch the films online for free that break it down. I mean, we're in Buck Rogersville. We're having our entire society radically re-engineered into an artificial habitat, in their words, to where we will artificially adapt to that and then be unable to live outside of it. We're having nanotech engineered viruses. That's what they are, artificially engineered viruses. All a virus is a replicating data RNA packet that programs DNA. So they've created on record, this is stuff that's declassified, thousands of viruses that will reprogram the brain. Do you understand the end of free will? They call it an anti-stress vaccine is how they're rolling it out. See, they call a Kinect the newest, cutest video game. Oh, that, by the way, uses wireless to scan through all your walls and listen to your voice 3 walls over, and it can give a color image of your naked body standing in a shower through multiple brick walls. And all the new computers and everything are listening and watching you. And suddenly it's all over Wired Magazine. It's all over the news. And they're going, what's wrong with that? It's totally cool. But simultaneously, I'm insane and I'm bad because I'm telling you it went on before they made the announcement. And I'm still insane and bad even after the announcement's made. You understand? That's how the programming works, because you're scared of that. You should be concerned. But you don't feel like you have power, so you're going to say, yeah, that guy's got a crazy show. I don't have a crazy show. I'm like an animal with my leg in a bear trap, trying to claw out of it. We are collectively in the jaws of something really bad, and we need to poke its eyes out. We need to bite it on the nose. It's got our legs, and it's trying to swallow us up, and I'm saying, let's struggle. Let's get out of this. And people are like, it's not that bad. They're doing it for our safety. Oh, they're doing it to keep us safe from terrorists. And then it's all on record the globalists run the terrorist. They did 20 years ago, they do today. And are using it to take our liberties. I mean, they're starting drug testing all over the country, in public schools without warrants, and checkpoints looking for drugs the government ships in and the big banks launder on record. Do you understand, folks? It's on record that every major vaccine they've looked at has cancer viruses added and other weird nanotech stuff. It's on record they're adding dozens and dozens of poisons. It's actually hundreds, but we can prove dozens on purpose. They're not just adding hydrofluorosilicic acid to the water supply. They're adding radioactive isotopes on record. Look it up. It is your PrisonPlanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here on this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday, 25th day of June, 2013. I am your host, Alex Jones. And I told you this a long time ago because it's the facts. Congress insisted they be kept in the dark on NSA spying. That's now what the lawmakers have come out and are saying to the press. They passed the echelon legislation in the 80s. They passed the Telecommunications Act of 96 and the subsequent acts that all stated $5 billion, $9 billion, $18 billion, $50+ billion, $100+ billion. That's how it's building up to build giant spy grids everywhere and hire hundreds of thousands of analysts per region to listen to your phones, to track everything you're doing in live time. And they're not looking for terrorists, folks, okay? They've given them heat-seeking missiles in Syria. They are controlling the economy and spying on good government people. This has come out from whistleblowers. They're spying on the light side of government because there's a legitimate side of government that does legitimate actions and legitimate, quote, services. The problem is that it's shrinking down to nothing. And it's come out that they use it to spy. I mean, what did NSA insider Wayne Madsen tell you on this show 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, a year ago, 6 months ago? Over and over again. The NSA is there to spy on Congress, to spy on other governments, to spy on corporations, and to spy on the American people, and to spy on FBI, CIA, NSA. That's their their main focus, the most important thing, the apple of their eye, the plum, is their own people because the government is engaged in criminality. And they're all acting like this isn't going on. It's like General Alexander, the head of the NSA, the head of the Cyber Command, looking at the deputy director of the FBI and saying, tell your boss I'm going to buy him another beer. Because it's all a big joke, ladies and gentlemen. They're all committing crimes. And so, of course, Congress says, I know nothing. I've seen nothing. I hear nothing. Nothing. And what do they do in their testimony? All of them. Justice Department heads, all of them. I know nothing on Benghazi. I know nothing on IRS Gate. I know nothing on Fast and Furious. They actually know everything. If someone in the Justice Department or someone in the NSA that's even mid-level wants to go into my entire surfing history, they can do it right now. And they can also go in there and place false things. That's even under law, under a subsection of the Patriot Act on sneak and peek. And then when you find out about it, if you catch them in your house or catch them on your computer remotely, it's a felony if you tell anyone they were doing it. Well, I mean, what are they going to have laws next that they can put children in soup bowls? It's the law. Or make black people slaves again. It's the law. I mean, well, I say your law is a fraud. It's unconstitutional. It's a infamia. So that's just one of the articles up on Infowars.com of, no exaggeration, there's probably 200 articles here. Richard Clark says Hastings accident consistent with a cyber car attack or car cyber attack. We're going to get into just huge amounts of news, some breaking stuff on Benghazi. 76% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. It's all coming up. George Noory and Sheriff Richard Mack. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday, 25th day of June 2013, worldwide transmission. We're going, send me money. It's kind of like that in the old days. And you go pay Al Gore or the Rothschilds or the Rockefellers money so you feel good about using your car. It's just crazy. Loving to be suckers. Nothing to do with the environment. I mean, here's one in the Weekly Standard. White House Climate Advisor, a war on coal is exactly what's needed. We can cue up the clip of Obama saying, we will bankrupt coal. You can build a coal plant, but we will bankrupt you. And they're doing that to shut down our industry. They're not calling for China to stop building 3 of them a week, as they shut down more than 3 of them a week here, and as your power prices go up. I mean, I know I harp on this. It's just they are gutting America right now because they are an enemy globalist group that hates the fact that we still have guns and still have a memory of freedom. They want to extinguish that forever. Just like Stalin would collectivize all the farms in Ukraine to break everybody over a decade. Your calls are coming up at 800-259-9231. First-time callers, folks, today. 800-259-9231. You've got to realize an enemy force has taken over and is waging war on us if we have any hope to ever turn this around. America is captured. Toll-free number to join us, 800-259-9231. Coming up, it looks like a federal lawsuit, maybe even criminal charges against John the Don Corzine, formerly the head of Goldman Sachs and who stole a bunch of private bank accounts, brokerage accounts via MF Global. We'll see if he actually goes to jail like he should. But the crimes he committed are standard operating procedure for the banks that run this country. And they are the people that run the whole New World Order. And look at how many of them are going to jail. Look at how many of them are getting indicted because their crimes are so public and so obvious. We could bring these people down. Also, on the whole immigration bill, the 1,200-plus pages, now people are having time to go through it. I've read some of the subsections. It just ends the country as we know it. And Chucky Schumer is saying that if it's not passed, there'll be a new civil rights movement. Can I go to Mexico or Guatemala or Brazil or France? We mainly talk about Latin America. Can I go to Central Africa and show up and say, my civil rights, I'm here in your country, pay for everything? I mean, the country is going bankrupt, and these big banks want that, folks. They want to destroy our wages. And they sell it in the media via the Ford Foundation for more than 60 years. On record, that's who funds this. Ford Foundation has more than $50 billion in their war chest, paying for textbooks in Mexico, mainly, saying, you know, El Norte belongs to Mexico, Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. This is the globalists that run our government to create this division so that it's seen as you're anti-Hispanic, even if you're Hispanic, if you don't want to be under the government of Mexico, a failed state. Because the globalists want to collapse Mexico into the U.S. and collapse the U.S. That's their goal in a receivership takeover. Chucky Schumer, who wants your guns and who says the family is a bad thing and is just a horrible monster, he's saying he wants to bring in a bunch of foreigners who could probably be brought in and turned into liberty lovers. A lot of them are. Instead, they're turned into anti-American, socialist, anti-gun people. And then Americans are told, well, you better go along with this or you're racist. When, ladies and gentlemen, have you seen the demographics in this country? If they've branded this as a Hispanic victory racially, notice it's all racial politics, the government and media is selling. Turn on MSNBC, it's like the Ku Klux Klan channel, but for whites that hate whites and other people that hate white people. And they're pushing it, actually to make sure whites then go into their own little bubble as well in a balkanized system. And that's what Brzezinski talks about. That's what the UN and Club of Rome talk about. That's what Henry Kissinger's in the news today, saying what we hope for is a balkanized, divided Syria. That's what they want, is a global corporate government with all the old countries broken up along religious and sectarian lines. This is the Roman model, the British Empire model of divide and conquer. And imagine how they've branded it. If you see the demographics, you've got Hispanics in the Southwest and Texas and Florida where under the age of 10, and this number's a few years old, you've got 60 to 70% of the children are Hispanic. Okay? And then you've got all the rest of the country. I mean, if this was a racial thing, then the Hispanics have